there are things, the tax on winning. They want to scrap emission taxes. They want to scrap COVID tax. These are things that we expect them to do. I mean, so we will hold them.
Do you expect them to do them in this 2025 budget, or it can be gradual?
For me, they didn't tell us in the manifesto how they were going to go about it. But our expectation is that this is the first budget they are writing. So anything that will suit the pain of Ghanaians will give them some comfort. That's what we are expecting. And in the area of trade, we are expecting that they also focus so much on private business development. Note that I have always said time and time again that the 24-hour economy can only industrialization. So they have to give area of agribusiness and value addition. These are things that we expect them to do. And also, I want also to hear something about what they want to do so that Ghanaians will patronize locally made vehicles, assembled vehicles. This is the first time Ghana has gone about 70% or 75% of these vehicles as over 8 vehicles. So there's the need for us to encourage local manufacturers, and that's how government should be the number one off-taker of these arrangements. So my expectation is that government should give out good plan how government to be able to patronize locally made vehicles so that they'll be able to make money.
Your side has been critical of the government, especially about how the picture they paint about the Ghanaian economy. You say that the economy they inherited, is better than they are saying. I believe
that you're a journalist, you know about that. This Ghana Statistical Service yesterday gave, which is very phenomenal. I mean, economy that we inherited in 2016 or 17 at 219 billion. Now it's gone. So we mean that we've done almost a little over 500%, which is huge. This economy cannot be a bad economy. It's a crime scene. I mean, for 3 months, 3 months of payment. This is a country that is doing well, and the country that has a very prospective, bright future. So we should not paint a bad picture about this noble economy again.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ochrebefi. Was a Deputy Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister of boss of the NLA. Good morning to you, sir. You are live on GTV.
Yeah,
what will be your expectations? You expect that the government should scrap all the taxes they describe as nuisance, all of them?
Well, that is only fair that principles are principles, and governments and politicians are also held accountable to the very promises that they make. So the promises that they made on the campaign trail, they're telling us to be an alternative in covering up for these taxes that they're also taking up, without passing the buck to further impose more taxes on the people. Going to help fill the revenue gap that has been created for the betterment of our nation.
But you support the removal of the betterment?
Absolutely, and I've been consistent on that matter. And in fact, it was Dr. Baumien's position as well when he was also campaigning that he was also definitely going to take away those taxes. But the NPP had an alternative. So I want to hear the alternative the NDC is also bringing on board.
Thank you very much. Samia Uku is a happy International Women's Day once again.
Same to you and every woman and every man who is performing the duty of a woman.
All right. So, what kind of budget do you foresee your finance minister presenting? The people of Ada are listening. They want an improvement in their lives.
The budget is going to be because Ghanaians don't want too much talking. We don't want peace, and we should have things reduced so that we can buy. All on our table. We don't want to hear, and the inflation is this, inflation that, and that. We don't want to hear their big English. We want to see changes in our lives.
That is your finance minister presenting about.
Yes, we promise to reset Ghana, and the reset is going to start from today, because a lot of levies will go off, and we know that will reduce the living cost a bit. They should stabilize the city. That's all we want. So it should be no long talk. I don't believe in long talk. Action. The action to start from today. That's all we are looking for.
Right. So you are not on sanitary pads.
I have not heard anything about that yet already, but as women, we are working on it, and the vice president, even not scrubbing at all, there will be some improvement or some changes that will better the lives of our young girls.
Thank you very much. Honorable Doyo Gansa is the second Deputy Chief Whip, Majority Chief Whip. Here from now, we get indication that the Finance Minister will be presenting the budget. As I said, the expectations are varied. Ghanaians will be glued to their TV sets to see exactly what the Finance Minister will be saying, especially because the cost of living in the country is high. So at this point, we'll hand over to you in the studio whilst we wait for the Finance Minister to do the presentation. Over to you.
Morris for that update. Morris has been reporting from Parliament, and as you saw, he's been speaking to some members of the Parliament already in the House. It seems that in a very short while, Finance Minister designate Mr. Thomas Ampem-Nyarko, and he's been saying that they are going to focus on cutting waste in the system and also doing targeted spending. And so we'll come to the studio and speak to my panelists, resource persons, on what exactly they expect from this statement of cutting waste and doing some targeted spending. Mr. Brown, he's talked about cutting waste. Which areas? We've already spoken a bit about the waste in the system, shortfall from scrapping some of these taxes.
Yeah, so I mean, expenditure management is very key. And I think we all agree that we've not done very well when it comes to managing expenditure. What we've identified from the little research that we've done is that there's a lot of work to be done about the budgeting process, right? And getting actors within the chain to commit to budget allocations. The process itself, what is coming out is that trouble outcomes, not vague activities or cost-driving activities, but what are the outcomes that those activities should lead to? And if they can be measured in terms of the value addition, then you are talking about value for money that money is spent. And so in terms of the budgeting process, we want to see some reforms there, including inculcating these ideas into the budgeting process. Expect something on strengthening Parliament's oversight on the budgeting process, scrutinizing a bit more what goes into the budget over the last few years, and that contributes to that's us funding the losses of these SOEs. They are not bringing anything, and yes, they end up with losses that we have to fund. It's time for us to look at reforms in the management of the SOEs, bring in people that are professional, not necessarily, politically exposed or linked. Even if they are, they must have the qualification and experience to be able to manage these SOEs and bring in good corporate governance, transparent financial reporting, regular as well, so that we can see when they are going off track and show some commitment by reducing the number of ministers. We just want to hope that this is not just on paper, because you could move away from 90 ministers to 60 ministers, and at the end of the day, the expenditure may even increase because of the activities that the 60 ministers are getting involved in. So beyond just reducing on paper the number of ministers, we have to look at the particular cost-driving activities that they get involved in. We've heard things like no more first class, ministers must drive business class. That's bolster maybe beyond the minister level to maybe deputy minister should do economy, that kind of thing, to ensure that we are managing the activities that are driving costs. Adding at the presidency, we don't know how true that is, but there are people at the presidency who are ministers of state that may enjoy the same benefits as the ministers. As we encourage the government to prioritize, cutting expenditure, we also have to advise that they proceed cautiously, because government spends for a reason. And so the priority should be on, spending on projects or in sectors that will propel expenditure. You may end up cutting the very activities or investments that will propel growth and end up constricting growth, which is not something.
Spoken to him so much because we lost him at some point. Hello, Courage, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much for staying on. The Deputy Finance Minister has spoken about the fact that in this budget we are going to see some cutting of waste, which they feel is in the system, and also targeted spending, which is a strategy they are going to use. Mr. Brown has said that when the budget is drawn, allocations are really used for what they are supposed to be used for, also cutting down ministerial appointments of view. What do you think government should look at when it comes to cutting down waste and then also targeting what they intend to spend during the year?
Well, thank you. A very good point made there, you know. And let me take you back to the SOE's issue again. So look at ECG, for instance. We told there is a combination of technical and commercial losses to the tune of some 36 or so percent, 2 billion cedis every year, every month, which is what is required to pay the energy sector value chain. They do 1.8. It is part of the reason they've accumulated so much debt, and the energy sector is in such a mess that it is in. And what it poses to government, at least when you're looking at it on a general government level, and you're looking at a public financial management and the requirements there, it means that your debt is really not just what you borrow, but it is the liabilities that come from the rest of the SOE. Government goes to borrow maybe from Eurobond, from the local market, on lend to these institutions. They use it to do the things they have to do, but then they never pay back or are unable to pay back. Some of them haven't posted profits in a long time. And I heard someone talk about they being on fat salaries and their bonuses and everything they earn are intact, but then the institutions they run are not making profit. The point I'm driving at is that we need to drive efficiency in spending and efficiency across all the sectors, including SOEs and all that. When I say efficiency, what does it mean? There should be a justification for every cedi spent on anything. That is the only way we can realize value. Look at it this way, and I'm just using this as an example. I'll come back to the same point. How many projects have we started in Ghana, pumped so much CDs into them? And you can talk of the Commander Sugar Factory. Some, if I recall right, is there 40 or 400 million borrowed from Indian government? We invested into a sugar factory that is supposed to reduce sugar import and create job for the communities around. That money, for as long as the NDC has been in government, even if there is a moratorium on, we're talking of cutting, of rationalizing expenditure, cutting costs, and making sure we improve efficiency. The things we should be doing is that we should be having justification for every cedi we spend in every sector. We should do the mathematics, the calculations to see which sectors have the highest multiplier effect. When I put a cedi, say, in agriculture, and I put it in maybe rice growing, what will be the multiplier effect in terms of how it saves us effects and all that? Those analysis need to be robust. Otherwise, we'll be throwing money up, and we are very good at throwing money at problems. So the president went to a site where there is some, I think he was in the Volta region not long ago. What was the name of that thing? I mean, the seaway thing. And then the instruction is that make allocation for constructing, and it's a good thing to do. But are we considered in Ghana? We've had a gas on the spot announce a gas recirculation model, which has taken several years to implement, and we are still at. drive through every aspect of our public spending. That is a sure way we can cut expenses. Because if you look at the budget as it is, you look at the NPP's last budget, you look at the indicative 2025 budget, you realize that rigidity is the biggest issue. Rigidity, you add up the non-discretionary expenditure items, and so you would almost always have to borrow to fund capex, right? But where are the areas we can cut? It is through efficiency, because you cannot just arbitrarily say, let me cut wages. It's a no-go area, but you can drive productivity of labor who you are paying with those wages, so that when you drive it, they generate enough to pay themselves, and there are residues for the state, to remuneration tied to their performance. So that in a year, and that is what happens in corporate, if they don't make profit, you don't get bonus and all that. Those things are tied. So people are motivated to bring their best value, and a percentage of that value they create, as public sector has been run all this while. I'm sorry, we'll come back to this whole conversation of expenditure, rationalization, efficiency, and issues thereabout.
On this issue of state-owned enterprises, is it not the case that government has been unable to make sure that those who work in these sectors do what they're expected to do to generate even profit? Because government itself, although makes allocations for these state agencies, has oftentimes failed to provide those allocations as stated in the budget. And so they can't really do nothing about what happens in these state agencies, because they themselves have failed to provide these resources they need to work.
Well, but you see, there is no justification, so-called should be commercial entities. DVLA until recently was a subvented state agency. You don't know why it is so, but DVLA should be turning out profits and paying dividend to government. Go to ECG. There should be no reason why ECG should be a loss-making entity. I don't know why we should be at this point driving towards full cost recovery, and we should be ensuring efficiency in their system so that value can be created. So we pay so much, but we are told it doesn't cover the cost of power generation. And if you look across the sub-region and many other serious economies, the cost of electricity is much higher in our place than a number of other places, really. It is even the reason, part of the reason why tradability of our electricity is some way. And so the portions we send to maybe your Togo, your Cote d'Ivoire, are the ones from hydro whose cost is probably slightly lesser. And we, the populace, tend to maybe face the cost of the higher ones produced through the thermal plants, and ordinarily should be doing well. Talk of graphic, daily graphic, and those are all, to some extent, state-owned agencies and all that with some of these agencies. So if you are buying electricity for your offices and all that, you are not paying for it, and the systems are not being maintained and all that, it's a circus. It will go back and come back to haunt us, really. So everybody needs to pay their fair share of what it is. Until we get to those levels where we are properly rewarding efforts and quality value created, and not just being in an office or in a position and all that, until we get to that level, we wouldn't be technological in how we even collect revenues in some state agencies. It could be performance contracts. It could be new investment to drive efficiency in certain sectors. Cocoa Board, the way it has run over the time, to the quasi-fiscal duties it's running, that needs to be dealt with. Cocoa Board should function as a support system, an institution that regulates the cocoa sector, provides support for farmers, and it should be focused on driving productivity in cocoa and cocoa only. And then the dividend to run the same model. And it is that way that we can reduce the general government debt and then ensure that there is efficiency in spending, and every CD we spend, I believe, would generate value for the economy. But the way we run it now, if we go business as usual, I'm not sure anything will change. And that is what I'm expecting the reset agenda under this new government will be championing.
All right, Courage, let's take a look at the issue of ghost names. What do we do with regards to technology to be able to address these challenges that we're facing from year to year?
It should actually net the digitalization drive all this while, right? Every company, I mean, DBC, I believe, knows everyone that works at that institution. Everyone reports to a boss. And so whether your direct system, it is a deliberate, willful intentions to probably manipulate the system that results in these ghost names, not only a national service, as we are being told, but a number of other state institutions. So, and all that. But really, a simple clocking, whether you come to work or not, you have security systems at the entrance to clock whether you come to work, what time you came, what time you leave. It's even useful for performance management, right? You don't need to force people, even when they are on leave, they should come in and do some validation, blah, 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 and all the things we see. Simple technology, a clocking system at the entrance. When people come, and if someone is to come to work, and the rules are to have vacated your seat, and this very measure will take place. What is it in the state institutions, really? What are the supervisors doing? So the people who are supposed to be working, who their supervisors do, technological and if you like, digital advancement and all that. If these things exist, it's because people want them to exist. It's not because some rocket science that cannot be cracked.
Be coming back to you for some more. Now, Mr. Brown, you're saying something about the audit agency and the fact that they've been under-resourced, who have been taking care of some of the...
How under-resourced the internal audit agency have been all this while. So they are basically not performing their functions. I do not know exactly the chain, but I imagine then the manual processes allows for this human intervention, which breeds corruption and all that. Because then somebody can sit at the National Service Secretariat and have a gentleman's agreement with whoever is handling the audit at the internal audit agency.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee, grant that divine guidance to the President of the Republic and vision, integrity, and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and their good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. A country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor. A country of plenty shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving. A country of peace, able to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, we will take item correction of votes and proceedings and official reports. We start March 2025, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 6.
Speaker, with respect, none of us on the last row has a copy of the vote sample. No, they haven't uploaded it.
Honorable members.
Item 6A. However, if you go to page 262, the constituency Equiapim has been spelled with an I. So I don't know whether it's the I or the E that's the correct. Yeah, just for consistency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, table office kindly cross-check the correct spelling of Aquapim. Aquapim with regard to the constituency, not the general term Aquapim, the proper spelling of the name of the constituency. Which one is the correct spelling?
E.
So what about page 2 when it's an I?
The Electoral Commission designated it as an E.
Yes, so why didn't you draw our attention when we're at page 2? When it was spelled with I.
We don't have a copy of it yet. All those here.
That is not a challenge to me. It's a challenge to you. Individuals don't have copies. It's not a point of order for Mr. Speaker to interrupt the proceedings. Yes. Minister for Foreign Affairs.
The communication from His Excellency the President informing the House that the Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka has been assigned additional ministerial responsibility has been omitted. It should be in the interior. The rendition here does not accurately capture that because it's not a reshuffle if it's not captured accurately. So right, Honorable Speaker, the rendition here does not convey essence more accurately. You don't get that impression here.
Whether you were talking or you were laughing, that's not an issue. The issue is, have you had sight of the communication? Sight of the communication. You are
yes,
sure?
Mr. Speaker.
Because the copy I read, the communication is that he's being assigned the responsibility. The communication is that he's being assigned the responsibility of So, Minister, you are out of order. And green transition. Oh, energy and green transition. Probably through you to the table office. It's true that not all of us have had copies of the not the order paper, the votes and proceedings. Mr. Speaker, under your able leadership, you provided proceedings. Mr. Speaker, under your able leadership, you provided us with very, very beautiful and working computers. So maybe I thought that I could appeal to you if you could direct the table office to make available next time the votes and proceedings on the computer. At least without even the paper copy, we can easily follow on the computer and make comments and suggestions. As the Chamber of Parliament was constructed in 1964, in spite of all our attempts to modernize it, we are still having serious challenges, also giving us serious problems. It means we have to replace all, including the. We have a lot to unload into your PCs, but we are having challenges. And so you see that we're doing it piecemeal. And I hope in the near future we'll succeed in putting all there so that it will be a paperless parliament. We don't want to be giving you hard copies. It's quite expensive to run such a system. So bear with us. We'll get there sooner than later. Yes, honorable members, can we go to page 10? Page 11. Page 13. Yes, honorable member. Honorable member, my mic is working. Have stopped working. Honorable members, I will please just on 5 minutes.
It's back. Mr. Speaker, it's back.
Honorable members,
It's on.
are you sure?
Mine is on. Speaker, this is on. Then everybody should come here and talk. Mr. Speaker, it appears that my microphone is working, and I'm ready to yield my space for Speaker.
Honorable members, sitting is suspended.
Oh, no, it's working. Look.
The mic is not working.
It's working.
But it has come. It keeps trying.
Parliament. Because the microphones for addressed before proceedings will continue. So as I speak to you now, Parliament is gone on a brief suspension. It's gone on a brief suspension. As and when the microphones are fixed, they will resume. But what we are hearing in the background is that the microphones are, if a microphone is on, the other MPs are unable to also turn on their microphones simultaneously. That's what we're hearing in the background. So, Pearl, the House is packed. We see started in earnest just when the MP for Afajatu South rose up to his feet and announced that his microphone was not working, and the other MPs also joined. There were some MPs who said that they didn't get a copy of the Hansard yesterday, the previous day's proceedings. They didn't get copies of that. You know, even before there was a detection that some of the microphones were not working. So the technical issue of, you know, the microphone is dealt with. Parliament will resume. The Speaker has left the chamber. He's giving 5 minutes before you know, the proceedings will resume. We're still here in Parliament. Quickly, we'll speak to some of the persons who are eagerly waiting to hear from the Finance Minister, Dr. Kasiala Tofor-Singh, the Executive Secretary of the Import and Export Test Association of Ghana, Honorable Samson Awingobit, is here in person, waiting to hear exactly what the Finance Minister will be saying. Let's quickly engage him. Continue. Good morning to you, Mr. Awingobit. You are live on GTV. And so the House is gone on a suspension because of some technical issues. As a business person,
to solve the needs of the ordinary citizenry, I'm very optimistic that this budget is coming to address the cost of doing business in the country, prices of our goods in the market. At the ministries, the Minister of Finance himself, when she went to market to procure goods we want to see. That is a burden on every household as we speak now. And so we are looking forward to see that the COVID levy is gone. We are looking forward to see that that was one of the challenge areas that President Mama used in hammer in campaigning. The government agencies working are reporting that they are also like a revenue authority, which shouldn't be. They are not revenue authorities. And so and of course, President Mama made it to understand that the Ghana, we are spending over $400 million in importing frozen chicken to this country. We've spent $2 billion importing food into this country. We want to see that, no, if a half of this $2 billion stay in this country, by government giving incentives to those who produce rice, those who produce maize, those who produce soybeans, so that they can feed our industry, can feed to the poultry producers, then they can produce more. Then we will no longer send $400 million to import frozen chicken to this country. They will no longer send out $2 billion, and that will for us. So today's budget will be the first year of the 24-hour economy. We are eager to see what the Minister of Finance is bringing. And I am happy and very optimistic that the Finance Minister showed us some example that he's above what we are thinking, that he went to the market himself. And then so the challenge is the issue that we've been raising, that if you go to the market, the cost of doing business, inflation, city depreciation, we want the stability of the city, we will see. So that whether if he has actually listened to them and then putting it to action, then this budget would address those concerns that we have been raising.
You think there's any strategy that will help stabilize the Ghana cedi in a very short term? We see how the cedi is depreciating against major trading currencies. Are we able to?
In terms of fiscal policy, will bring cedi depreciation, will bring inflation down. And that's why I advised last time that the Minister of Finance bring in inflation, isn't it? Then stability of the cedi is paramount to us. And so I can tell you, we strongly believe that there is a need for government of Ghana to actually make sure that the city depreciation is to import frozen chicken. We are sending a hooping of $2 billion to. So even half of 50% of those money to stay here, there will be stability in the city, and the
Tax, the levies, e-levy, COVID, emission tax, betting tax should be off in this particular budget, or it should be staggered.
yes, so that will give business confidence. And if, mind you, President Mahama have already extended his invitation in his hand to invite investors that left the shores of the Ghana. Remember 2020, this government is a new government. The new government is a business friendly. The new government really want to do business, and the new government is prepared to receive investors coming. And so your city stability, your inflation, and then your interest rate is key. That is why we propose in the 2 days economic dialogue that the bank reserve, the commercial bank reserve, that the cash reserve that they deposit at the Bank of Ghana, what do they use it for? It's for 0%. They are not using it to trade. So the bank doesn't even get any profit. Can we, if we really mean that we are spending so much millions of dollars, bringing frozen chicken, bringing rice, can we use those money to direct, to invest, or to borrow to people who want to go into rice production, people who want to go into poultry production, people who want to go into maize and sorghum production, so that at a rate of 6% per annum, that is the way, that's the surest way that can cushion and that can benefit the people.
All right, thank you very much. We will stay here in Parliament. We await the resumption of the House any moment from now. There's a 5-minute suspension of the House to fix the technical issues. So I'm hand over to you in the studio whilst we await the presentation of the 2025 budget. I thought because
Of course, there were challenges, technical challenges with the microphones in the House, and so the Speaker directed that they suspend sitting until the microphones are worked on. So as and when they do work on the microphones, proceedings would start again, and then the Finance Minister can have his day in the House. So back into the studio will be some financial advisory. Mr. Wingobit mentioned a number of things, particularly rationalization of fees and charges at the port. We'll talk about that. But one key thing he also spoke about was the Finance Minister's interaction with women, market women, and also that X-Spaces conversation he held with the youth. Do you think that was very critical at this time when he has to put out the budget, especially just few days to the budget when many know that the budget was already done?
Well, I think it's a nice feature in the budget. The budget is a finite document. If you were to interview, market women all across, I'm sure, it will still boil down to just a few key issues that will feature in the budget. But it's a nice gesture. It's, carrying them along. You then enjoy that confidence down there, and they are then ready and prepared to contribute their quota. Even going to the market alone, for instance, can prompt some in that, a video that we saw, that picture also are mainly the informal sector. Getting down there and talking to them, that it's a budget designed for them alone will,
to appreciating why they may need to maybe contribute to payment of taxes.
Exactly, their quota in various ways, not only taxes, but also even in terms of, their own economic activities, and how that, instead of the boating, for instance, that's an option going to other, I would stay back to, contribute my quota. So it's a nice gesture, even if their views and ideas do not end up in the budget, as blunt as they would want. I'm sure there will be other key measures in the budget that will contain aspects of what they want to see that they can run along with. So that's very good.
And the interaction with the youth, I have seen the most recent Afrobarometer report, and it stated that one of the major issues that people want to hear from the Finance Minister is the issue about unemployment, which really directly affects the youth. More than 43% of respondents said that they really wanted to hear something from, tried to help them appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, unemployment was very topical in the lead up to the elections, and let me say it's been topical over the last few years. Not few years, it's been an issue that's been hanging around. Every government comes around and tries to do what they can, right? But they made promises on how they are going to get the economy, to whip up productivity, to expand the economy, and to create jobs. Just create the enabling environment to create those done issues relating to how they are approaching this whole idea or this whole thing around creating jobs. Maybe the 24-hour economy policy may have come up, and so everybody is very expecting rewiring this whole idea of 24-hour economy to create jobs. And so it's good that he engages the youth, and I think that that's more so because of how emphatic the election victory was. If you look at the topical issues, I would say unemployment is number one. Our challenge has been that even though we keep growing the economy, the extent to which the economy generates jobs has not matched the extent to which the job market is growing. And like I said earlier, it starts with looking at really reconfiguring the structure of our economy. The structure as it is now is largely import dependent. Maybe about 80% of what we consume in our households are imported, which means you are creating jobs elsewhere. You know, the final thing is what comes here, and in a simple trade, buying and selling. If we manage to improve the value chains along various sectors, we think there's one other sector which has escaped me a bit. If we prioritize those and develop the value chains along those sectors, we are going to be able to, issue.
Now, for Mr. Wingobet, he's into the import and export business.
Yes.
And so one thing that for him is of interest is taxes or fees at the ports.
Yeah.
And the current administration, even during their campaigning, indicated in their 120-day social contract that they were going to do something about port levies. What do you expect to see about that? Because Mr. Wingobet mentioned...
You go back to the lead up to the elections. Both major political parties were promising tax reforms at the port, indicating that the number of taxes alone on the imports are too many, and so there should be some type of rationalization, maybe consolidating some of them and scrapping some of them entirely. So that's
we'll hold on to that because I'm told Parliament is back in session. I'm sure issues with what's happening in Parliament.
8. We'll now move to page 9. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, I'm exceedingly grateful for the opportunity and with judgment and wisdom on item 15, Roman numeral 2, Dr. Justice Sremsai, a nominee for Deputy Ministerial Portfolio. Speaker, if you take the 13th report of the Appointment Committee, the nominee has been designated as Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General. But over here, the votes and proceedings have justice. I do not know if it's a needless repetition, especially with the deputy coming at the two ends. I seek your superior judgment.
Correct designation. He is the Deputy Attorney General and also a Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Justice. That is the correct designation. May we go on now? Page 14. Yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, on page 14, item 16 motion, under conclusion of debate, the second sentence, the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker will do for the Chair as 16. The same applies to the next sentence, so consequential amendment to that. Thank you.
Honorable Member, we are grateful. Table of Offers kindly take note. Page 15. page 16. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Item 9, item 9I, name number 11.
Yes.
We usually have the title, the professor, coming at the end of the name and in brackets. But in this arrangement, the arrangement is different, Honorable Professor. And I see that again on page, we haven't gotten to page 22, but I have seen that.
Member will take note of that. Page 18. Yes, please.
Item 11 and 12 has been repeated. Honorable Alfred Ni Koteyashi. It's both at 11 and 12. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, my attention has been drawn by the chief whips to the fact that there have been some and approved. I think it was on Friday. Yes. And so they are working at it and they will come back to us properly. So we await that. So if you identify some of the issues you are raising now, please, we'll do that later on. With regard to the composition of the committees, both standing and 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, the end of 58 will be taken later on. So please, honorable members, hold your peace until they resubmit the proper composition to the House. In the meantime, the committees by law are established. It's only the composition that we're having issues with. The referral will be to the committees. With that, we'll take page 59. Of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 29th sitting of proceedings. Official report of Tuesday, 25th February 2025. Of any correction? Yes?
Mr. Speaker, some manner. Line 8, the former president, Dr. Jokun Kufuor, names are very significant. F-U-O-R, not O-U-R, Kufuor. It's a Kufuor. Then the last paragraph, the last sentence, beginning to tend to that concept. Tend is used here, but I suspect the right word should be tend, T-U-R-N, instead of tend, T-E-N-D. Thank you.
Table office, kindly take note of that. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on column 75, line sentence you read, but I want to highlight one important thing that the maker, Mr. Speaker, still on the same column. Line 17. Mr. Speaker, it should read as, I think that apart from the law, we should look at the program we there. Mr. Speaker, colleague to suggest that apart from the budgeting offloading of projects, the mistake here is the phrase, the maker of the statement has to be deleted. The maker of the statement has to be deleted and replaced with we, so that it will then read as, Mr. Speaker, lastly, I would want to also suggest that apart from the budgetary offloading of projects, we could include in every brochure, ... So that, I think, should be the range. I would be able to exclude it or replace participate with partner in the same sentence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have to listen to the voice and do the proper thing. Well, this is quite massive, and partner and participate, they are quite different and distinct. So the voice will determine which one to use. Because if you read the standing orders, it talks about it being put in, it is said, on the floor. Yes, please.
I'm most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, at column 144 of the official report, my contribution to the tribute to the Osajefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the second paragraph at column 144, fee. So it should be FIF, that can be corrected, belong to that category. It should be put in a different category. So if the corrections could be effected accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There being no further corrections, the official report of the 25th February 2025 is hereby adopted as the true record of proceedings. On to the item of the day. The main item of the day, that is item 7, statements. The first statement.
Today's order paper, item 7, as you rightly call, the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite you to our standing orders order. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, please, let's listen to the Deputy Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Minister, I read, the budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the Minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the President, and in a form the House may determine. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, this new standing orders on this 9th Parliament, we haven't determined any form the budget statement will be. I have gone to read Order 6 And I've checked on our schedule from Schedule 1 to Schedule 10. And that, Mr. Speaker, as at now, the House has not determined the form. That is my plea. That the House must determine. My application is that the House must determine the form of the budget statement before he reads the statement.
Majority Leader.
The Public Financial Management Act and its various amendments spell out clearly the budgeting process, the requirements of a budget, what must be contained in it, and etc. And that was a legislation enacted by the same Parliament of that legislation. So I recommend that we have a form in which the budget should be presented. The provisions of the Public Financial Management Act, of course, is the parent legislation dealing with financial management and the presentation of budgets. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's an issue here. Let's proceed.
Yes, Minority Leader. I have listened to the application by the Member of Parliament for Toulon. I've also listened to the Leader of the House responding to application was anchored in Order 195. There's no This is what it says. The budget statement in economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House. So they should take it easy. This is law. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the reverse logic? Please, for the benefit of our young ones, for the benefits of the young ones, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this House is equally guided by its own rules and precedents. Wait a moment. For those who are in a hurry, in reverse logic, the House may decide, but just we may have to determine which form. So, Mr. Speaker, the invitation by the minority, the deputy minority whip, is well-founded. He is inviting us as a House to determine, are we going to allow him to make a statement, or we are going to allow him to move a motion? Is it going to be in a form of a motion or in a form of a statement? This is a well-anchored application. Don't use your number to shout to intimidate him. This item has to be taken. The deputy minority whip is inviting us to set the ground rules. The majority leader got up and referred to PFM Act to say what? He didn't quote the specific provision. The man has made an application. He didn't say anything against his application on the rules. What coming to do it is for this House to determine, is he going to move a motion in accordance with Article 179, or he's coming to make a statement? And when he makes the statement, what happens? Is it going to be left with a chairman of a finance committee to now move that this House should debate the statement? Mr. Speaker, this is a solid application, and he should be applauded for what he's done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to rule on, in terms of procedure, the right thing has been done. The order you quoted clearly states the statement of the estimates of revenue and expenditure of the government. It says what? the statement. And so what they are bringing to us is a statement. And when statements are admitted, they are presented as statements. Now, when you go to 1952, which you refer to, it says the budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the president. That's first. Second, and in a form the House may determine. Honorable Minority Leader, you are not in a shouting battle. Please. This is the House. The only way the House can determine however you. The House cannot determine this matter. You are truly, if you decide that you, then this is the time you want. Please, the statement must first be presented to you. It has to be presented to the House. And if you may, you determine the form you want it to be presented. That can be part of the debate. But I'm not sure the definition you are putting on the word form. Form. Please go back to your lexicons. To determine the meaning of form. I think the writing is being done. The statement was admitted. It's been properly captured on the order paper as programmed by the business committee, and the minister is here to present the statement to the House. So Honorable Minister, just a minute. Just a minute. Honorable members, at the commencement, yes.
Mr. Speaker, just to thank you for your guidance.
Galamsey for the longest time until I became a Galamsey.
Statements. The budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Minister for Finance.
Mani Mahama.
and pursuant to Article 179 of the Constitution, and the other paper, and the standing orders of the House, Order 1952, and today's order paper, Item 7. Mr. Speaker, I present to you the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, today marks a moment of great significance. President John Dramani Mahama, following his extraordinary mandate, the maiden budget of his new administration. Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to His Excellency the President for entrusting me with this responsibility. Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I also submit to this House the following statutory report as required by law. The 2024 annual report on the petroleum funds, in line with Section 48 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended, Mr. Speaker. Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the 2024 annual report on the collection and utilization of the African Union Import Levy Act 2017, Act 952. Right Honorable Speaker, with this budget, I will also be seeking a review of the following act to support the policies of government aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting inclusive growth. The first will be an amendment to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. The second will be the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund Act 870. And the second will be an amendment to the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act 2018, Act 978. Amendment to the Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, the PNDC Law 81, as amended. The Speaker, that's not all. I'll also be seeking amendment to the Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Act 2017, Act 947, the Ghana Procurement Authority Act 2003, Act 663, as amended in Act 914. Speaker, I'll be seeking amendment to the Ghana Education Trust Fund Act 2000, Act 581. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'll also be seeking amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, and incorporating into a comprehensive public financial management act. Mr. Speaker, I forgot to add that I will also be seeking amendment to the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. So, Speaker, we remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy of stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right Honorable Speaker, this policy will contribute to addressing Ghana's structural economic challenge by creating an integrated, efficient, and increasingly of our national resources, capital, and labor policy to Parliament in due course. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, and other enabling legislation to stabilize our city through foreign exchange and gold reserve accumulation. I will also submit a bill to provide a legal framework for the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board for the consideration of this House. Mr. Speaker, this budget is indeed an abridged version of the 2025 budget statement and economic policy of government. I respectfully request the Hansard Department to capture the entire budget statement and economic policy of government. For standing here evokes a sense of nostalgia as I reflect on my journey in public service, from my early days to a member of the Finance Committee, to a Deputy Minister of Finance, to ranking member of the Finance Committee, to Minority Leader, to Majority Leader briefly, and now, Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible of Finance. Right Honorable Speaker, the invaluable experience I gained in this change to supporting His Excellency the President to fix the economy of Ghana. I take this opportunity to extend across the aisle for for your unwavering support throughout my years in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, this esteemed House is a sanctuary of rigorous pursuit of greater good of our beloved country. I look forward to working with you, Right Honorable Speaker, and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to reset the Ghana's economy through sound policy and structural reforms that will propel our country forward. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time in a nation's history when fundamental challenges must be confronted, difficult choices must be made, and a new course must be set for the future. For Ghana, the defining moment is now. Mr. Speaker, President John Dramani Mahama made a commitment to reset Ghana for jobs, accountability, prosperity. The Speaker, as captured in the NDC manifesto, in this regard, the theme of our budget is resetting the economy for Ghana we want. Right Honorable Speaker, our democracy has been consolidated with yet another peaceful transition of power. That notwithstanding, our youth face an uncertain future with growing unemployment and hopelessness. This suggests that the dividend of democracy, such as economic prosperity and social justice, remains elusive. Mr. Speaker, the choice before us as a country are clear. We can either continue on a path of self-destruction by not confronting the problems, our priorities, honor our social contract, and provide opportunity for all. Mr. Speaker, luckily, President Mahama has chosen the path of reform and transformation. He will fix the economy. He will restore hope and lead us to build the Ghana we want. By the National Economic Dialogue on the theme Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together, on the 3rd and the 4th of March 2025, to the severe challenges that plagued us as a country. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is a culmination of stakeholders. As part of our broad consultation also, ahead of the budget, we recently engaged traders at major trading to elicit their input. Mr. Speaker, the extensive consultation revealed that the overriding concern among Ghanaian traders and business community remains price and exchange rate stability. Apart from eroding their working capital, exchange rate volatilities makes effective business planning impossible and increase the cost of doing business. This budget outlines far-reaching measures which will be implemented in close collaboration with the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, to effectively and efficiently manage the exchange rate and inflation. Mr. Speaker, we also engage the youth of Ghana in a dialogue on social media as part of our new budget consultation. Mr. Speaker, during my engagement with the youth, it was revealed that 321 pharmacists who were employed since June 2023 have not received their salaries. We will take urgent steps to remedy this situation immediately. Right Honorable Speaker, this conversation was an eye-opening experience, one that strengthened my belief that the voices of the youth matter in designing policies that directly and indirectly impact their lives and future. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2016, I came to this chamber on behalf of the then Minister of Finance, the Honorable Seth, to deploy a robust public financial management system. Even though, Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act remains one of the best in the world, its poor implementation has rendered our public financial management systems weak, allowing for abuse and costly infraction of this critical legislation. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, we will enforce the sanction regime, link contracting and public procurement to... Mr. Speaker, we will comply with the public procurement. We will rationalize the management of the compensation of employees, including conducting headcount across the country. This is 1st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now focus my attention on the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, hands on heart, we inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and shortfalls and financial sector payments. Mr. Speaker, recommitment control and reckless public spending have reversed the progress made in fiscal consolidation, even under the IMF program that commenced in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the gains made under the IMF-supported program that was to achieve through the painful sacrifice of domestic bondholders, external creditors, and taxpayers, the economy remains in distress. Right Honourable Speaker, key performance indicators to be assessed by the IMF staff in the upcoming fourth review of the program, scheduled for April 2025, such as the primary balance on commitment basis, are likely missed. Right Honourable Speaker, in addition, all structural benchmarks due by end December 2024 are also missed. Mr. Speaker, inflation worsened in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the 2024 end period inflation also exceeded the budget target of 15% by 8.8 percentage points and the IMF central target of 18% by 5.8 percentage points. Unfortunately, this has triggered a discussion with IMF under the monetary policy consultation clause. Right Honourable Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP in the year 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% in the. It's a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, the previous government recorded a deficit of 3.9 percentage point of GDP. This presents a slippage of a whopping 4.4 percentage point. Right Honourable Speaker, representing 5.2% of GDP. The Speaker, with the road sector recording an arrest of 20, my office was inundated with requests, total arrests and outstanding payment for all MDAs. The Ministry of Finance decided to formally request all MDAs on the 28th of January 2028 to submit information on all arrests and outstanding claims for validation. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance held a special hearing with the MDAs to validate the arrests that were submitted for payment. The response from the MDAs and the validation revealed that a staggering amount of 67.5 billion Ghana cedis is owed to government contractors and suppliers. Mr. Speaker, this consists of MDAs outstanding interest worth 18.3 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion excludes 1.73 billion US dollars owed to independent power producers. This 67 billion also excludes 68 billion Ghana cedis owned by Electricity Company of Ghana to contractors. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion US dollars also exclude the 32 billion owned by the Ghana Cocoa Board to contractors. And Mr. Speaker, this 67.5 billion also excludes the 5.75 billion owned to seeking an amount of 53 billion Ghana cedis as bailout to be able to address their negative equity challenge that they face. Mr. Speaker, as part of the measures to address these mounting accumulated arrests, we have commissioned an audit of these arrest payments and guarantee value for money before a penny will be paid. Mr. Speaker, before a penny will be paid, we'll commit to do that arrest. Right Honourable Speaker, in addition to the 67.5 billion cedis in arrests, the validation process cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount represents 16.5% of GDP as at the end of 2024. With the road sector again alone accounting for 100, most of these contractors and most of these contracts were awarded without commencement certificate and authorization. Mr. Speaker, this is in blatant violation of the Public Financial Management Act 921. Right Honourable Speaker, let me now update you on our debt service obligations. This debt service and constrained fiscal financing options. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the government option to finance the budget service of both domestic and Euro of payment. Right Honourable Speaker, Domestic debt service alone, programmed for the next 4 years, is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, simply put, the interest and principal payment that will be due for payment beginning now for the next 4 years is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 11.6% of GDP, 50 billion Ghana cedis. Ghana cedis is due for payment in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, 2027 alone, the domestic debt service that will be falling due will be 57.6 billion. And 2028, of 2027 and 2028 are major harms. These harms are cancerous and pose significant risks to the economy of Ghana. But Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we shall fix it. We shall fix it. February, we were called upon to pay 9.9 billion. July, we'll be paying 6.2 billion. And August, we'll be paying 10.1 billion. Bill, that we also inherited. So, Speaker, these obligations, totaling about 111.1 billion Ghana cedis, requires rollover week in, week out, placing additional pressure on cash flows and liquidity requirements. Obligations for the next 4 years. In the next 4 years, will be made to call upon to pay 8.7 billion US dollars, representing 10.9% of GDP, with heavy concentration again in the year 2027 and 2028. Again, Mr. Speaker, 55% of this external debt service will be due in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, in the year 2027, we'll be made to pay 2.5 billion US dollars, and 2028, we'll have to again pay 2.4 billion US dollars. Right, Honorable Speaker, it seems the debt restructuring undertaken by the previous administration was designed to make 2027 and 2020. How come we sat and allowed that design to happen? Mr. Speaker, that is cancerous, but I can assure you we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, in spite of all this upcoming domestic and external debt service obligation, no buffers were built to cushion this unprecedented debt service burden. Mr. Speaker, as of 7 January 2025, the debt service reserve account, the sinking fund in dollar, has a balance of 64,000 US dollars. Mr. Speaker, when we were leaving office, we left behind. The debt service reserve CD account had an amount of 143 million Ghana cedis. Right, Honorable Speaker, when we were leaving office, the balance was 430 million Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, I now move you to stalled project. So, Speaker, due to the bilateral, a staggering number of 55 projects have been halted. So, Speaker, this leaves a massive amount of 3 billion Ghana US dollars in undisbursed loans, and about 300 million. The famous Ifia Kwanta Hospital, the Kejetia Market Phase 2, the Bogatanga Boko Pomakrom Road, and cost overruns of over 1.1 billion US dollars. Right, Honorable Speaker, the IMF-supported program imposed an annual. This constraint means that it will take a minimum of 12 years to complete all of this stalled program. So, Speaker, unfortunately, as a result of the debt restructuring or this stalled program to resolve this challenge. Speaker, I now take you to the famous energy sector fiscal risk. Mr. Speaker, the increase in energy sector financing shortfall is posing significant risk to the Ghanaian economy. About 20.8 billion Ghana cedis, like roads, schools, and hospitals, if the sector inefficiencies were resolved. The Speaker, a recent exercise conducted by the energy sector revealed that the business-as-usual energy sector financing shortfall has increased significantly to about 35 billion Ghana cedis. Honorable Speaker, more importantly, the shortfall for the period 2023 to 2026 has been estimated to be about 140 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is 20 times more than the allocation for goods and service for all MDAs in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, in addition, the energy sector shortfalls, which relate to current invoices that are largely unpaid legacy arrests due to the independent power producers. Mr. Speaker, the legacy arrests stood at 1.73 billion. The backbone of the Ghanaian economy is sadly on its knees, owing to gross mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, the sector faces high fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right Honorable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. Mr. Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right Honorable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. Mr. Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and, as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 1 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only 4.4 billion has been. The financial sector still struggles, even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector, 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emerging risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agriculture Development 24. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrests were accumulated over the period. On commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, on cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing a 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 5.2% of grant amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. The performance was mainly driven by higher than programmed oil and gas receipts and higher non-oil tax revenue collection. Total expenditure on commitment basis, including the 27.1% above the budget provisions of the year 2024, Mr. Speaker. The primary balance on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 232.4 billion, or 19.8% of GDP, 16.8% of GDP. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, all expenditure lines exceeded their respective targets for the pieces for the year 2024. Being unclassified expenditure was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis as compared to 12.9 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, at the end of December 2024, provisional data indicate that gross central government from 610 billion in 2023 This represents 61.8% of GDP in 2024, compared to the debt to GDP ratio and the dollar component of our debt that has come down, that has reduced, is as a result of the debt. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP that has reduced is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal and interest that were given to Euro bondholders. So, Speaker, sustainability and economic stability. As of now, the restructuring process is approximately 93% completed. The remaining 7% relate to debt of $2.7 billion owed to commercial creditors. We are committed to completing the remaining debt restructuring as soon as possible. So, Speaker, real sector development in the year 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 shows that overall real at the end of increased to 5.7% in the year 2024. So, Speaker, I take that again. The Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 show that overall GDP growth grew by 5.7% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, the key driver of this growth was largely coming from gold mine. Mr. Speaker, including Galamsey. Galamsey growth cannot be sustainable. Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP growth. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil GDP grew by 0.6% in the year 2024, compared with a growth rate of top position of $8.98 billion at the end of 2024, and was enough to cover 4 months of imports. At the end of 2024, the currency had depreciated by 19.2% against the US dollars, 17.8% against the euro, against the British pound, so Speaker, and it had depreciated by 13.7% against the euro. The Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is what it is. The state of our economy is troubling, but we will fix it. Sacrifices, truthfulness, transparency, and discipline. We will take strong measures to confront the situation head on. So, Speaker, the sacrifice must come from all stakeholders, beginning with the government. So, Speaker, His Excellency the President appreciates this and has led. Mr. Speaker, he has also reduced the number of his government ministries from the Elephant 30 to the Umbrella 23. Mr. Speaker, with government and employers association to agree on a modest 10% increase in base pay and minimum wage for the year 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, profound gratitude to organized labor and employers. Mr. Speaker, ordinary Ghanaians have also sacrificed by enduring the negative high food inflation, principal and interest haircut, soaring interest rates, among others. Mr. Speaker, it is now time for the people's representative, the members of Parliament, and the judiciary to also follow suit. Organizations, academia, immediate task is to reset our nation of our people and set our country, is to build a prosperous and a democratic state, anchored on the principles of freedom and justice, providing equal opportunities for all. So, Speaker, through this vision, we will work together to build the Ghana we want. Right Honorable Speaker, the resetting agenda will be anchored on the following. 1, restoring hope in our democracy, renewing trust in public officials, and helping every Ghanaian attain their full potential. offering a trusted hand to the vulnerable, particularly women and youth, and creating a new Ghana for coming generations. And finally, stimulating demand by patronizing made-in-Ghana goods under the 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, today I came to this chamber with made-in-Ghana bag, signifying, Mr. Speaker, with made-in-Ghana bag, Mr. Speaker, I would like to first present, Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, I would like to first present the government's immediate and strong measures to address the current challenges we are confronted with, followed by the medium-term vision, policy objectives and targets. Right Honourable Management Act 2016, Act 911. The fiscal policy objectives of this government is to support the economic transformation agenda to ensure the macroeconomic stability of the country within the macroeconomic and fiscal framework. More specifically, rationalizing government expenditure and eliminating wasteful expenditures. Optimizing domestic revenue mobilization through broadening of tax base, increased non-tax revenue collection, adopting enhanced tax compliance measures, and modernizing the tax administration through digital job creation. We'll be reducing public debt to sustainable levels and adopting prudent debt management practice to support debt sustainability. Reducing the fiscal deficit progressively in accordance with the amended Fiscal Responsibility Act to promote fiscal and debt sustainability. And Mr. Speaker, restoring confidence in the Ghana economy. Right Honourable Speaker, our approach will be to foster economic growth, accelerate job creation, reduce inflation, and stabilize the cedi. To achieve this, it is crucial that we establish the macroeconomic stability and ensure debt sustainability. Mr. Speaker, we are confident that by prioritizing these fundamental elements, we can cultivate an environment where individuals can prosper and businesses can thrive in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians, through the recent National Economic Dialogue, have expressed a clear desire for fiscal deficit and public debt to be reduced through cuts. We will tailor our expenditure to align with our fiscal realities. After all, whoever pays off their debt gets rich. So, Speaker, we are poised to implement a three-pronged approach to achieve our objective, beginning with this budget immediately. First will be to recalibrate the fiscal adjustment, and we believe a positive cycle. Fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle in a way that first, it will help lower inflation, reduce the crowding out of private sector, and lower interest rates. Lastly, this approach will ease the strain on monetary policy, allowing the central bank some greater flexibility to reduce monetary policy rates, ultimately resulting in lower bank and lending rates. Mr. Speaker, the second approach will be to deliver a shock therapy. Mr. Speaker, we are implementing a form of shock therapy to the economy by making significant spending cuts this year, thereby reducing the gap and credit worthiness. Right Honourable Speaker, our third approach will be to restore fiscal responsibility. By moving forward, we will enhance public financial management by empowering ministers to effectively manage their budget on their own, ensuring strict compliance with the Responsibility Act, and finally, we will enforce the sanction regime for non-compliance of the Public Financial Management Act. Of a surplus of 1.5%, of GDP. Mr. Speaker, gross international reserves, including oil funds and encumbered assets, to cover not more than a minimum of 3 months of import of Ghana. and monetary authorities. So, Speaker, the measures to stabilize the exchange rate of forex to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana will continue to implement its FX forward auction to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. Government's strong fiscal consolidation through the reduction in public sector spending and the fiscal deficit will reduce the pressure under the 24-hour economy and related FX inflation problems through a number of measures, including the following: inflation problems. Through a number of measures, including the following. First, specific interventions, including the Agriculture for Economic Transformational agenda, is expected to end policies reduce their prices, contribute significantly to reducing inflationary pressures. Imported inflation and fuel prices. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana will maintain an appropriate monetary policy stance and use its liquidity management interventions to support the disinflation process. Right Honourable Speaker, to achieve our expenditure-led fiscal consolidation objectives, our expenditure measures, and the medium term to support fiscal consolidation agenda. First, we will conduct a comprehensive audit to validate the quantum of arrests and commitment as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, the mandatory use of blanket purchase order to capture multi-year commitment contracts in line with our medium-term expenditure ceilings will be implemented. We will amend the Public Procurement Act to provide for an independent value for money office to scrutinize government, to make commencement certificate and budgetary provision a prerequisite for all procurement that will be paid by the central government. To ensure that only MDA's projects and purchase orders that have approved budget and allotment can obtain procurement approvals. Mr. Speaker, we will operationalize the compliance desk at the Ministry of Finance to monitor reports on commitment and arrest accumulation. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we will publish a PFM league table for compliance purposes. We will strictly enforce sanctions under the sections 96 to 98 of the Public Financial Management Act for breaches of the PFM Act. Specific at it, very deep. Mr. Speaker, for complete elimination of development authorities such as Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority to the district assemblies and do away with the development authorities. So, Speaker, we will amend the petroleum, but for infrastructure use. So, Speaker, the National Health Insurance will receive full allocation under the earmark funds capping and realignment act. So, Speaker, the road fund will receive full allocation under the earmark fund and capping and realignment act. So, Speaker, JNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30, we will reduce the GNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30% to 15% and fully restore transfers to GNPC under the earmark fund and capping alignment act. Right Honourable Speaker, we'll be amending the Mineral Income and Investment Fund Act to ensure that 80% of the royalties originally maintained by MIF is transferred to the Consolidated Fund for Infrastructure Development. Right Honourable Speaker, we will strengthen social protection through the implementation of new interventions such as the Stress Initiative. The Speaker, it also includes the free tertiary education for persons with disability and free sanitary pads for schoolgirls. Mr. Speaker, to address the energy sector challenges, actions will be implemented this year. First, Mr. Speaker, ECG and NEDCO will implement a number of measures, including metering and implementation of private sector participation. Mr. Speaker, we'll also implement the liquid fuel to gas swap through an increase in end gas supply from 60 MMSC per day to 100 MMSC to take advantage of cheaper gas prices and others. Mr. Speaker, we will complete the IPP capacity renegotiation, O&M charges. Mr. Speaker, in ESRP measures to achieve the structural benchmark of the IMF program. Mr. Speaker, PURC will continue to. PURC will also undertake a major tariff adjustment, which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025, to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage, and additional capex. The weighted average cost of gas will be increased from the current $7.80 per MMBTU to $8.45 to reflect the increased prices of natural gas as well as the changes in the supply mix. Mr. Speaker, the subsidy on weighted average cost of gas development tariff will be reversed. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the revenue measures. Revenue measures for your consideration. I'll first take you to the IMF requirement. Mr. Speaker, this measures is inconsistent with over the medium term. We have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. On winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. By small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable income. Right, Honorable Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable incomes. In addition, it will support business growth and improve tax compliance. Mr. Speaker, Right, Honorable Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. In the last 8 years, a study revealed that 29.1 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account, with only 12.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 43% of the total accrued amount, being used for tax refund purposes. Mr. Speaker, the study also revealed that 16.6 billion Ghana cedis, representing 57% of the total amount accumulated in the tax refund account, was misapplied. Mr. Speaker, which is a total violation of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915, and the Public Financial Management Act. Instructively, Mr. Speaker, there were virtually no tax refund arrests over the period. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we are reducing the current tax refund ceiling by 2 percentage points from 6% to 4% of total revenue, as defined in Section 69 of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915. Mr. Speaker, we have saved the taxpayer 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the e-levy would have accrued 1.9 billion Ghana cedis, and the betting tax would have accrued 180 million. The two put together is just above 2 billion Ghana cedis. By reducing the tax refund account from 6 to 4, it is enough to remove this tax, and a savings will be provided to take care of social interventions. Mr. Speaker, already one source, and this is enough, to address the concerns from well-meaning Ghanaians on how we are going to close the revenue shortfalls as a result of the removal of the selected taxes. The answer is that we have stopped the bleeding. We have stopped the bleeding. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, with this budget, we will amend the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. This measure will improve the tax revenue net of tax refund by 2%, representing 0.3% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, in line with government policy, the 2025 minimum wage recently negotiated with the National Tripartite Committee will be zero rated. Again, without increasing the levy, we will also review the Energy Sector Levies Act to consolidate the energy debt recovery, the Energy Sector Recovery Levy, and the Sanitation and Pollution Levy into one levy and use the proceeds to cater for energy sector shortfalls and service the inherited debt service obligation. Mr. Speaker, the reset has just begun. Right, Honorable Speaker, the rest of the energy sector levies, including the Road Fund Levy, Energy Fund Levy, Price Stabilization will remain to support the achievement of their intended objectives. Right, Honorable Speaker, Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on the benefits of its extractive sector to generate revenue to support rent and channeling it towards productive infrastructure and human capital. Natural resource rent, which of GDP in the case of Ghana. However, Mr. Speaker, revenue from extractive industry is around 1.5% of GDP only. This is because, as a country, we have failed to fully capture the economic rent of our natural resources. Mr. Speaker, whereas global gold prices have seen some significant increase in recent times, Ghana has not been able to take full advantage of the development. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing to increase the growth and sustainability levy from 1% on gross production of mining companies to 3% to enable the nation to have its fair share of the windfall. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause to 2028. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause of the special import levy to 2028. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians and this Honorable House will recall that road tolls on public roads were zero rated in the year 2020. Arrests and claims in the road sector remains. Right, Honorable Speaker, while the annual average collection from road tolls have not been significant compared to its potential, the existing zero-rated policy for road tolls has increased the situation and dimmed the prospect of raising enough revenue from tolls to road construction and maintenance. Accordingly, government will work with the stakeholders, including the private sector. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will also strengthen the legal and regulatory regime for non-tax revenue and enforce the framework to improve service delivery. This will be achieved through the introduction of an overarching non-tax revenue legislation, amendment of existing relevant laws, and the development of a national non-tax revenue strategy and policy. Mr. Speaker, as part of the reforms to improve other non-tax revenue streams, government will explore the operationalization of a regulatory framework for collection, management, and reporting of property rates consistent with our medium-term revenues that the local authorities must be given the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the current compliance rate for SMEs and personal income tax is below 30%, which is extremely low. Government will embark on an aggressive and sustained tax education campaign in the next 2 to 3 years to ensure improved compliance and tax revenue mobilization. We will also institute a quarterly dialogue on tax issues among the Ghana Revenue Authority, Ministry of Finance, and the business community to ensure that issues affecting businesses are addressed promptly. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to VAT reforms. Right Honourable Speaker, we commit to the people of Ghana and this House, the business community, that we will undertake a comprehensive value-added tax reform this year. Mr. Speaker, with the aim to review the current distortions and cascading structure of the value-added tax regime. The 2.5% Get Fund levy, the National Health Insurance levy of 2.5%, and the COVID levy are well added to the base for a final determination of what is due for VAT purposes. Mr. Speaker, aside the high VAT rate, businesses are not permitted by law to claim their input VAT for any has been distorted and rendered inefficient. It combines both VAT and sales tax principles with a flat rate, standard rate, and levies. It is expected that the IMF mission will commence in April 2025. The recommendations from the Technical Assistance Mission are expected to inform our reform task force to hold broad consultation with key stakeholders for their input. Mr. Speaker, the parameters for VAT reform will be is for them to complete this year. Mr. Speaker, the parameters will include the following. 1, abolishing the COVID levy. Mr. Speaker, reversing the decoupling for households and businesses. Reversing the VAT flat rate regime and upwardly adjusting the VAT registration threshold to exempt proof compliance through public education and awareness. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to revenue mobilization, 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.2% of GDP, up from revenue measures which are expected to yield at least 0.6% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7%. Based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations for the year ending 31st December 2025 is this. Mr. Speaker, budget financing. Right Honourable Speaker, based on the estimate for total revenue and grant and total expenditure, the projected overall balance on commitment basis is a deficit of 43.8 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 3.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis is a surplus of 20.3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 1.5% of GDP. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, overall balance is a deficit of 56.9 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 4.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on cash basis is again a surplus of 7.3 billion, equivalent to 0.5% of GDP from both foreign and domestic sources. The total foreign net financing will amount to 21.4 billion Ghana cedis. Foreign financing will include a provision for financing from IMF ECF program disbursed of 720 billion Ghana cedis and the World Bank Development Policy operations of 600 million Ghana cedis, 65% of total financing for 2025. This is expected to be sourced from the issuance of debt at the short end of the domestic market and opening of the domestic market. Mr. Speaker, the government will take steps to reopen the domestic bond market, large-size benchmark bonds, that will enhance market liquidity. Right Honourable Speaker, further is to reduce the risk on debt portfolio of government, and we will build cash buffers to support effective implementation of the liability management strategy. Mr. Speaker, this will help smoothen the redemption profile and mitigate refinancing risk. We'll implement liability management operations to manage the risk embedded in the Eurobond debt profile. Right Honourable Speaker, beginning 2025, we will commence the operationalization of Section 37 to Section 44 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, the sinking fund, as a landmark reform to manage our public debt. Right Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to report to the House that following our proactive fiscal management strategy, in our engagement with the market, this management strategy has yielded sufficient dividend. Mr. Speaker, on the 7th of January 2025, the NDC government inherited a 91-day Treasury bill rate of 28.19%. Mr. Speaker, just 2 months into this administration, we have successfully reduced this rate to 17.72% as at last Friday. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of over 10%. In other words, 1,047 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, similarly, on the 7th January 2024, again successfully reduced that rate to 18.97% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. This represents a reduction of 995 basis points in only 2 months. Mr. Speaker, again, on the 7th of January 2025, we inherited a 364-day Treasury bill rate of 30.15%. We have successfully reduced this rate to 19.93% as at Friday's 2 basis points in just 2 months. The Speaker, on average, rates have fallen by over 1,000 basis points, signifying a strong investor confidence, crowding in the private sector, reducing the cost of doing business, and overall macroeconomic stability. It has been done already. Mr. Speaker, about economic transformation and economic growth by creating an 8 hours each to boost production, promote productivity, and generate well-paying jobs. We will be presenting the Act and other enabling legislation. We'll roll out the implementation document to open up the country will be established in the course of the year and as soon as possible. So, Speaker, we will stabilize the Ghana cedi and provide stability to the macroeconomy. We will implement an economic transformational agenda underpinned by structural reforms anchored on promoting modernized agriculture, agribusiness, and value addition for import substitution, export, and job creation. Mr. Speaker, we will complement monetary policy with fiscal and real sector policies to reduce inflation. Food inflation will be reduced through the implementation of the Agriculture for Economic Transformation agenda, anchored on our 24-hour economy. Growth, fiscal and debt sustainability, sound public financial management, efficient public service delivery, and good governance. The Speaker will ensure that social protection is adequately catered for in the course of the year. We will use government procurement to drive Made in Ghana agenda to promote production and consumption of Made in Ghana goods. Right Honourable Speaker, to demonstrate this agenda, as I said, I came to this House with a presentation of a bag proudly made in Ghana by Horseman. Mr. Speaker, we will formalize the export of Ghanaian labor to other countries. We will ensure a structured and beneficial system for Ghanaian workers seeking employment abroad and create safer legal pathway for them to work in foreign countries whilst protecting their rights and welfare. Mr. Speaker, this will also reduce illegal migration, prevent worker exploitation, and maximize the economic benefits of remittance and boost foreign exchange earners. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to how these resources will be allocated in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, we will provide a cedi equivalent board to be able to purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for Big Push project. 85 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 4 students in public tertiary institutions under the no-fee stress initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated an amount of 292.4 million Ghana cedis to commence the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated again an amount of 242.5 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of Akosombo Dam spillage. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of the residents in certain part of K2 South constituency. Mr. Speaker, the overarching concern and the absence of dedicated sources. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. The overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of a dedicated sources of funding. His Excellency President, this makes available dedicated funding for full financing of free senior secondary school education and free tertiary education for persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, therefore, Capping and Realignment Act will be amended to uncap the Ghana education. Mr. Speaker, this year, the budget for free senior secondary school education program is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. By uncapping the GET fund, we will be making available an additional 4.1 billion Ghana cedis in program and other related expenditures. Mr. Speaker, aside the uncapping of GET fund, that GET fund contracted. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 564.61 4 sets of KG books and workbooks for about 2.8 million learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 4 sets of primary textbooks for about 800,000 learners, 140,000 learners. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the school feeding program, budgetary provision has been increased 8 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, representing a 33% increase. The allocation for 2025 reflects an increase in feeding costs per meal, per child, from the 1 cedi 50 pesos to 2 cedis, representing 33.3%. Mr. Speaker, up from 84 million Ghana cedis in 2024. This is an increase of 73.4% over the previous year. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 203 million Ghana cedis for the payment of teacher training allowances and another 480 million Ghana cedis to nursing training allowances. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. An amount of about 10 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the National Health Insurance Scheme. And this amount is expected to be used for the following: claim payments, essential medicine, vaccine payment, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Care 2025, government will continue to implement reforms and increase budgetary allocation to enhance the implementation of 4 targeted social protection programs, namely National Health Insurance, the LEAP program, the school feeding program, and the capitation grant. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the LEAP program, July 2025, the allocation of 728.8 million Ghana cedis for last year has been increased to 953.5 million Ghana cedis in the year 2025. So, Speaker, we have also uncapped the road fund, an amount of 2.81 billion Ghana cedis maintenance. This represents an increase of 155% over the 2024 allocated, an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the District Assembly Common Fund. In accordance, percent of the funds allocated to the District Assembly Common Fund should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth and at the district level to deepen decentralization. Right, Honorable Speaker, I repeat, we have allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the district assemblies common fund. So, Speaker, in accordance with our decentralization policy and objective, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth at the district level and deepen decentralization. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that in a stark contrast to what has happened recently at the District Assembly Common Fund, where only 50% of the released amount are sent to the District Assembly for the purposes of running the assemblies. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis for Agriculture for Economic Transformational Program, of which Feed Ghana, Ghana Grains Development Project, Vegetable Development Project, and Nkoko Nketenkete are all key components of the program. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated 51.3 million Ghana cedis as seed fund for the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 300 million Ghana cedis. Repeat, we have also allocated an amount of 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Right, Honorable Mr. Speaker, an amount of 100 million Ghana, another amount of 100 million Ghana cedis members. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House. Mr. Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as sector-specific policy interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. So, Speaker, I want to repeat this. So, Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as specific sector interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. This is indeed a departure from the norm, where ministers also. Right, Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, have presented does not reflect an economy that has turned the corner. It reflects an economy in severe distress, burdened with debt repayment harms, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. The budget sets Ghana on a path of fiscal responsibility, debt sustainability, macroeconomic stability, and job creation. It is about resetting the economy and restoring. When they actively participated in the National Economic Dialogue on the 3rd and 4th of March 2025. A key outcome of the dialogue was the confirmation that the fundamental problem with our economy is fiscal indiscipline. The NPP administration awarded contracts outside the expenditure framework. They borrowed over and above Ghana's capacity to repay. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahamad's administration will be fiscally disciplined and deliver improved public service to our people in a cost-effective manner. Mr. Speaker, we remain steadfast in meeting the IMF program target while restoring Ghana's creditworthiness. We have achieved a lot in a short time, but this is only the beginning. Our commitment to reform we will not waver on that, Mr. Speaker. We have achieved a lot in this short time, and our commitment to reform will not waver. Those who doubt our result in effective governance, together we will navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger. Mr. Speaker, we are making serious progress. Right Honorable Speaker, we are making progress. We committed to running a lean, efficient government of 60 ministers. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the e-levy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the burden tax. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to eliminate academic fee for first-year public tertiary students. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing free tertiary education for all people with disability. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing dedicated source of funding for free secondary education. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to distributing sanitary pads to our schoolgirls. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap Get Fund. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap the National Health Insurance. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to uncap the road fund to maintain our roads. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to hold a national forum on education. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to hold a national dialogue on the economy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free primary health care. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver Mahama Care Program to finance the treatment of non-communicable disease. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free testation of $10 million Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to constitute a review process to build the Ghana we want together. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to recover all. Mr. Speaker, we committed to reset Ghana. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, I call on Parliament outlined in this budget. Together, that will help us tackle the challenges we face as a country. This budget is a foundation upon which we will build a more resilient and equitable society. Mr. Speaker, this budget is not just about numbers. It is about a blueprint for growth, stability, and opportunity. With unity and determination, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Mr. Speaker, with unity and determination, I repeat, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I invite this House to join hands with us as we work to build the Ghana we want.
Honorable members, for finance has taken 1 hour 40 minutes to make the statement. And I believe by our standing orders, the statement time is ended. We now move on to the commencement of public business. Presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented. Presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented.
Annual report on the petroleum fund for the 2024 fiscal year.
Honorable members, this refers to 8A Roman 1, and this has been presented and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. We now move on to 8A Roman 2.
Annual report on the collection and utilization of the African Union import levy for the 2024
and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. I saw the minority leader give a word. Yes. Yes, minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we have been presented with part 2 of the Lamentation series. The part Mahamanomics. The part 2 is Forcenomics. And it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, that under the economy that they complain about, the growth was 5.7%. They're going down. You are projecting a 4 point. The economy that they complain about left us with 4 months of import cover, and they are projecting under reset 3 months. Mr. Speaker, these are the very people who manage some IPP debts. Today they are telling us that they are coming to renegotiate.
Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are not debating today. We are giving an indication.
Honorable Minority Leader, please be guided by Order 91.
Mr. Speaker, exactly so. Very, very guided by that. Mr. Speaker, I may read Order 91.
Your statement was that you are not debating today.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, we are not making comment on it. We are not going to make comment today. 91, engineer the comment today. Because, Mr. Speaker, they are not ready. We are ready, but we think they are not ready.
Minority
so I'm
Leader.
only going to give an indication. Mr. Speaker, let the Minority Leader enjoy his bona fides for this minute. Just relax, Mr. Speaker.
I only want to draw your attention to the fact that you can only make comments.
Very well.
And the comments, not more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in commenting on this statement by the Finance Minister, it is clear to all of us in this chamber that today they decided to populate this chamber Mr. Speaker, they populated this chamber with their members only to come
Honorable Minority
and
Leader.
sing. Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister for Finance did not talk about the population of the chamber. So that is not part of the statement of the Minister. Please.
This time, after the inauguration, the swearing in, the majority side was heavily populated. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed what we can best describe as an Azan budget. Mr. Speaker, they are on much talked about for 24-hour economy. The president came here, they said it was already not included in his budget statement. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the youth of this country have been waiting for the policy will be brought. It is clear that all the jobs they promised the youth of this country was merely an Azan promise. Mr. Speaker, There is no inspiration from this budget. There is no hope in this budget. The repetition of the social intervention programs, Mr. Speaker, and then the minister complained that some contracts at the road sector had no commencement certificate. Go to the Chain Homes Road. There is a road construction on the Chain Homes. There is a new road being constructed to the 10 rooms with a new runabout. There is no commencement. We did a search. There is no commencement. There is no PP approval. You are doing, Mr. Speaker, you have started construction
Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I shall conclude my comments by saying that whereas the Minister of Finance told us that there will be heavy sanctions against all those who go contrary to the PFM Act, under his own administration, the Chain Homes Road is being constructed now. A new runabout is being constructed. Must start with his own ministers. Mr. Speaker, we are ready for our comments. We know they are not ready, but if the minister is going to stay, Mr. Speaker, let us start the comments on this budget statement here and now, because this Azam budget, we cannot allow it to get onto the shelves for Ghanaians to think that there is any hope. Mr. Speaker, there is going to be comment to expose them. Thank you very much.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minority Leader and I share something in common. We were both assemblymen. And when the Minister of Finance made the unprecedented announcement of a gargantuan sum of money for assemblymen, I saw the gleeful smile on his face. Mr. Speaker, this clearly is a budget of a government and a party that keeps its promises. That was made by John Dramani Mahama is being fulfilled in less than 120 days. This budget is a budget for Makola women. It's a budget for girls. This budget, sanitary pads, students, girls, students, sanitary pads, sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the men on this side have started using sanitary pads. Because the sanitary pads is for the female students. That's why I said girls. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget for school children. They will now, Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that delivers solid reforms. And this is a budget that is moving our growth from Galamsey growth to real growth. Mr. Speaker, by the time we finish implementing this budget, and by the time we finish implementing the three that will come after this one, Osunu Beye Nkitikiti. Osunu Beye Nkitikiti. Osunu Nkitikiti. To wit, Mr. Speaker, the elephant will become small. Osunu Beye Nkitikiti.
Majority Leader. Majority Leader, the Minister for Finance did not talk about Osunu. So, Osunu is not part of the statement. Please.
Speaker wants to roll with you. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to assure my friend, the minority leader, that the road at Chain Homes that is being done is not a new project. It's not a new project. So don't. There's something else you want me to add. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that will stabilize the economy. This is a budget that will create jobs for the youth of this country. Because this is a budget that will stabilize the economy and provide the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive and create jobs for the youth of this country. Mr. Speaker, fishermen, students, and the energy sector is going to be salvaged by the implementation of this budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister of Finance for making the statement, and to assure my friend, the minority leader, that we are ready. The proposals contained in the statement of the Minister of Finance will indeed.
Earlier on, this, you have to make comments on the statement and to guide you, because it's a transition. We used to debate budgets by making it a motion. Our standing orders from experience guided us to change it to a statement. And so last budget was a statement, and this one too is a statement. So it's a new field, and you need some guidance as to what to do during the course of that. If not, the Speaker will have a hell of trouble managing the House. So what we intend to do is, since independence, you can go to the foyer and you get the budget statement since independence. We also have soft copies of handouts of budget statements with the pictures of the various ministers of finance. They will all be on display for you to go, and you can, at your own leisure, go through it yourselves. There is a viewing session now. You can go and have access and view it. We believe that this will assist you, and as we do that, we may focus on some of you, and we particularly want to project the excellent inputs that our ladies make on the floor as part of the affirmative action, the law that we passed. So we will give the ladies a priority. Honorable members, I will proceed, and then you decide whether we should adjourn or not. So I'm going to put the question. Honorable members, I will allow the leaders to move the motion. The minority leader wants to move the motion for adjournment.
Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it is entering this in full. So we can do some 2 more hours of comment before we move the motion. Since 7th January, this is the first time. So, Mr. Speaker, let's give them the opportunity to comment, especially those who are not regular in this chamber. So, once we are done, we can then move the motion to adjourn the House. Mr. Speaker, that is my humble prayer. I don't know whether they would agree, but if they are in a hurry to go back home, Mr. Speaker, I would therefore move that this House be adjourned to enable them go back home.
Mr. Speaker, is a reflection of the constitution of this site. It's testimony to the fact that when they are needed, they will be here.
Honorable members,
Mr. Speaker,
honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, please, honorable members, the Winneba choir sings I want to repeat it. I'm sure you didn't hear what I was trying to say. The Winneba choir sings better than you all.
Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that the minority have withdrawn from participating in the involvement in the development of this country. They started it and then they got the response. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I second the motion for adjournment.
Honorable members, those in favor of the motion for adjournment, say aye. Those against the motion for adjournment, say no. Majority leader, yes.
Mr. Speaker, there is rebellion on this side of the House because their leader moved the motion. Leader, put your house in order.
Honorable Majority
Watch
Leader.
your back.
Please. That is democracy. They are entitled to disagree, even with their leader. But yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have a very peaceful caucus. Mr. Speaker, I moved the motion for adjournment for the benefit of the majority. I said to enable them go home and rest.
Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. This House stands adjourned to tomorrow at 10 in the forenoon. The House is adjourned.
About some taxes, which he says that government will abolish, or it will be submitted to Parliament for consideration. He spoke about contracts and arrears in that sector. He spoke about audits into arrears payments before any penny will be paid. There are a number of things. I still have my guest in the studio, Mr. Brown. He is with Deloitte. Mr. Brown, you've been with me throughout this presentation since morning. Yeah. Finally, the finance minister presents the budget. Did it make it for you?
Yeah, I mean, if we take it in the context of what they had promised, right from the manifesto and the hint we had throughout the national.
Be going back to Parliament. We'll take some reactions where we would have the minority leader up in your marking address the media. So as and when they are ready, we'll take you to Parliament. But before that, let's hear from Mr. Brown about his reactions to the presentation by the Finance Minister.
Yeah, so as I was saying, in the context of what they had promised and, you know, what they had hinted over the last few weeks in terms of the various engagements we have had, national economy, he managed to touch on almost all the key policy initiatives that they had promised, you know, except that they weren't as detailed in terms of the specific. You can give him some slack because he did mention that this is an abridged version of the budget.
And that's where I understand, because this,
he was reading.
Especially about the taxes, you're having that conversation earlier. you to give us some timelines on when these taxes are going to be scrapped, and that is what many people are waiting for. And then we hear that he still submit some documents to Parliament for a review. Even those documentations, he did not give us any timelines on when they are going to be submitted or presented to Parliament.
So, I mean, for now,
So
just to give him...
I'm told that Parliament is ready, would head over to Parliament, because the NPP, that finance minister, so will head over to Parliament and will come back
with a more comprehensive. The minister has confirmed to the whole world today that the economy we handed over to the NDC government was a strong economy. We have been telling government over an economy which was not in crisis, and yet he told Ghanaians the economy was in crisis. The Minister for Finance that this economy is a strong economy. You watched the hesitation when it came to announcing the growth figures. You also watched with hesitation by the minister when it came to the debt levels, the debt to GDP levels. The reality is that as of the end of last year, 2024, growth rate, real GDP growth, was 5.7%. And this was released just yesterday by the Ghana Statistical Service, confirmed by the minister today. We took over from the end of 2016 with a growth rate of 3.4%. And if you come to the projection for 2025, that is really disturbing and disappointing. An economy is projected to grow at 4%. How can we say that this reset economy will be better than the economy that President Mahama said was criminally mismanaged and which grew at 5.7%? So we left national reserves, and that was the equivalent of 4 months of import cover. The NDC handed over in 2016 with import cover of 3.5%. 2016, we left them with 4 months of import cover. In this year's budget, 2025, they are recorded in 2016. Are we moving forward or we are moving backward? So if a broken economy could leave 4 months of import cover, how come a reset economy is contemplating going back to 3 months of import cover? Ladies and gentlemen, the debt to GDP of Ghana, they have made all the noise about the MPP government excessively borrowing. The debt to GDP at the end of 2024, 61.8%. NDC, when they left office in 2016, it was 73%. It was not until when the GDP, but the real debt to GDP when they left government was 73%. We left government with 61.8%. It means that Ghana is no longer heavily indebted. We have brought Ghana to the IMF target of 55%. If you have 61.8%, we are talking about 6 percentage points to achieve the IMF target. And as of 2024, we already have achieved 61.8%. This economy, they said, was a broken economy. Just 6 percentage points to achieve the 55%. But looking at the way they've started borrowing, I am worried. I am worried if they will not jeopardize the achievement, the gains that we have handed over to them. Current account balance is in surplus. This cannot be a broken economy. The fiscal data was handed over to them. The minister was quoting a fiscal deficit on commitment basis of about 8.3% and primary balance of about 3.7% deficit. Ladies and gentlemen, these are cooked figures. These are cooked figures. They have manipulated the data, and we know how to do it. And that is what they have put in the fiscal data to manipulate it to the levels of deficit they are complaining about. Data, every Ghanaian will know that we left a primary balance of a surplus of 0.7% on commitment basis. Ladies and gentlemen, they're talking about IMF, that we have breached, seen the breach of the IMF program even before the minister of never happened in the history of this country. That a minister will be happy for his country to breach when the IMF has not said so. And that should tell the Ghanaian the lamentation and the misinformation they are carrying out to the world. When a country breaches the IMF program, it has serious implications for attracting investment into the country. This Minister for Finance is appealing to investors to come to Ghana, and the same minister is telling them that the economy is bad when the evidence doesn't support what he said. Is he attracting investment? The minister also talked about the $10 billion big push. $10 billion big push. And in this budget, he only allocated $800 million. $800 million to the big push projects in this budget. When they want to spend $10 billion, assuming they even average $1 billion, they increase it to $1 billion average a year, they will not even be reaching $5 billion by the end of their term. So the jobs they are promising Ghanaians, they are Sakawa jobs. The jobs will not come. They are already failing in their promise as far as the big push is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, they talked about 7%. But if you look at the average industry performance from this year, 2025, to 2028, by the time they leave government, it is only 5%. Average industry growth, 5% in 2024. So the 24-hour economy is another Sakawa. The jobs they are promising will not happen. Continue to increase. The budget did not address how they are going to ensure that petroleum product prices do not increase. And once petroleum product prices continue to increase, transport fares will increase. How they are going to reduce energy bills continue to increase. Looking at the indicators that we are seeing, and we thought that having campaigned on cost of living crisis to present a budget that will address the cost of living crisis in terms of transport fares, in terms of prices, in terms of energy bills. But even when we come to taxes, the minister announced that they are abolishing VAT on motor insurance. VAT on motor insurance. Rather, the minister was trying to be smart. They have reintroduced VAT on non-life insurance, with the exception of the motor vehicle in. We are so shocked that the minister will reintroduce VAT on non-life insurance, except motor vehicle insurance. What we did not expect was the reintroduction of VAT on insurance. They've also increased the growth and sustainability levy from 1% to 3% for the mining sector and extended the sunset period from 2025 to 2028. When you heard the minister talking about growth, he said that growth, this is not good for economic growth, and this is not good for the development of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, betting tax that they said they have abolished. We never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that was not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana. My brothers and sisters, they are talking also about gold board. It's important I address this. The gold board, as you heard the minister talk about, is to be financed from getting $279 million to the gold board. We have never funded the gold purchase budget. In our view, it's just to put in money to be benefited by NDC cronies. It is to create loot and share fund, and therefore it did not affect the taxpayer. Now you have a gold board which is going to rely on the taxpayer. We think that this is, let me also say that the women banking that they said they were going to set up, they have allocated a paltry sum of 50 million Ghana cedis, 51 million Ghana cedis, 51 million Ghana cedis. And the capital requirement is 400 million for banks to be set up. So what are you telling Ghanaian women? Even when you have your vice president being the first woman to occupy that position, we are throwing dust in the eyes of the Ghanaian people, particularly our women, who really need all the support we can provide to them for Ghanaians. The NDC, as the minister said, indicated that there is no dedicated funding for free senior high school. That is not a component of ABFA. That is how we have funded free senior high school. Now he is deciding to uncap GET fund with the view to using the uncapped amount to fund free senior high school. But GET fund is for infrastructure. GET fund is used for infrastructure. Free senior high school is mostly about goods and services. And this is why we applied the goods and services component of the ABFA to fund free senior high school program. Very soon, Ghanaians will see whether they can provide sustainable funding for free senior high school. These are all attempts to come back and tell Ghanaians that it's difficult to fund free senior high school, and therefore parents should pay. That is what they are trying to do. But we will expose them anytime they try to do this. Also, the Agenda 11 projects, we had a dedicated funding source for it. We were funding it with the CAPEX component of ABFA allocated to GIF. The minister is taking that money from GIF. He has indicated that GIF will no longer have that, which means that they will not in all the districts across the country. They are also talking about allocating some money after they abolished nurse allowance and teacher allowance. We brought it in. They are continuing with it, and they are allocating money towards it, and they want to take credit for this. This cannot happen. If you recall, the Minister for Education said teacher training allowance was no longer going to be viable. But the Ghanaian people, led by we the mighty men, teacher training allowance. And this is why they have chickened out. And instead of admitting to the Ghanaian people that they've gotten some sense from the mighty minority, they want to tell you that this is just preliminary response. Tomorrow, we have a major press conference to give a comprehensive response. It is not going to be for girls. It's going all the Ghanaian people. Thank you. It's called what? Ndada budget. Ndada budget.
Well, welcome back to the studios. That was the former Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, and he was reacting on behalf of the minority to the budget statement by the Finance Minister, Dr. Kaisel Atufos. And then he mentioned a number of issues which I'll just run us through. He spoke about the Women's Bank and all. I'm told that there's something still happening in Parliament. I'm sure Maurice will be giving us some more reactions. So we'll take you back to Parliament and we'll come back to the studios. Maurice, take over.
Close of 2024. And so the minority is asking, if we did 5.7% in 2024, why are we targeting a 4% growth in the year ahead, 2025? This particular budget has also been making allocations to the many promises that were made by this government. So if you listen to the finance minister, there is an allocation to cater for school fees of first year's allocation for agricultural development. The government says there is a need to mechanize agriculture, and for the first time we're going to be having our assembly members paid. So some 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to pay allowances to assembly members as promised in the NDC manifesto. So quickly we'll be speaking to some of on the 2025 budget as presented by the finance minister. Let's quickly join in and speak to the former deputy minister for education and listen to the uncapping of the GET fund to provide funding for the free senior high school, how the minority accepts this particular policy.
It's only financing infrastructure. And so saying that you're going to make savings from the uncapping of GET fund to finance free SHS is highly misplaced, because the larger component of free SHS is the running cost, disbursement to schools, recurrent disbursements, and then feeding, textbooks, and other expenditure that are non-infrastructure. Therefore, if you are relying on savings from GET fund to finance your free SHS, it is a misplaced alignment. And so clearly, they don't have any dedicated source of funding for free SHS, contrary to our strong position and dedicated source of funding. Ghana backwards. The economy of Ghana has been taken backwards because from growth rate of 5.7, they are targeting for abysmal 4%. They are only taking us backwards. We were expecting that after inheriting a GDP of 1.2 trillion cedis, they would have taken us forward. They would have grown the economy further, inheriting growth rate and year growth rate of 5.7. You take inheriting gross international reserve of 4 months import cover, approximately $8.9 billion. You don't take us backwards to only 3 months import cover. And so clearly there is no aspect of this budget that is inspiring. Then they talk about 51.8 million cedis to set up Women's Bank. Which bank can use 51 million cedis for capitalization? You need minimum 400 million to capitalize a bank. And so if you really want to set up a bank, properly so-called, you cannot joke with 51.8 million.
That's a seed capital.
How is it a seed if it doesn't even meet the minimum, seed required to capitalize a bank? The minimum capital for a bank is 400 million cedis. You are talking about 51.8. So it's just an amount to just share to the party apparatchiks, but not to set up any meaningful bank that will be sustainable, that will support businesses and support small enterprises led by women. We expected them to show commitment. We expected them to have an initial allocation of nothing less than 500 million cedis, such that you meet 400 million minimum capital and have some extra 100 million, to drive sustainability. So this budget is uninspiring. They also introduced a lot of hidden taxes. They talked about abolishing taxes. Yes, of course, we all in our manifesto agreed that certain taxes ought to go. Promised that we're going to abolish COVID levy. We promised that we're going to abolish betting tax. We all said we're going to remove it. And that is why governance is dynamic. It means the good people of Ghana that, among other things, e-levy was going to be scrapped, and then we're going to abolish betting tax. So if they have abolished same, that's commendable. But they don't pass the back door to reintroduce many hidden taxes, under the guise of abolishing taxes. And now it is going to impact the sunset period they have extended to 2028 that must be mentioned in this budget, is that they just listed some 800,000 students that are going to get textbooks. But 800,000 is just one class. So if it is the whole primary from primary 1 to JHS 3, 800,000 is just about class 2 learners or class 3 learners. And so if you are only bringing them 4 sets of textbooks for only one class? What about the other classes? And what about the other subjects?
So we're still here in Parliament. That was the former Deputy Minister for Education there. Let's quickly speak to Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, Honorable Suhene, and listen in on his thoughts on the budget.
Ghana cedis. And so that debt remains, an issue, at the ministry. But I'm very confident that with the way the finance minister has begun, we'll find a way to...
Was just speaking to the former Deputy Education Minister, Reverend Tim Fojo. Back into the studio, Mr. Brown, it seems that the issue about the women's banking and allocation for the women's bank it's people, they think that amount is not just 51 million.
Yeah, I'm sure there must be a reason to it. I'm certain they must be following a certain strategy. For instance, based on some other studies that we've carried out, we thought that there's no need for you to establish a full bank on its own to take care of women businesses. You can have a desk in a place like Development Bank Ghana, a department that is dedicated for women's banking. And, in that case, then you won't even have to bother about, looking for the seed capital of 400 million. You could then allocate this 50 or 51 million to that desk to advance the cause of women. So, and it becomes more efficient as well. You don't get to create all those bottlenecks and add another layer for the regulators to then look at, because I'm sure then they would have to touch on certain aspects of the politicians as they are. I'm sure announce that, okay, we are no more going to do establish a full women's banking on its own, and rather allow things to play out. In the end, later it will show up that...
About that, because there are a number of issues that are coming up after this presentation. We'll go back to Parliament where Maurice is still stationed.
Other, government to invest in the road expansion network across the country.
Honorable, you are doing a $10 billion push project. Right. If you look at the money you located in this particular budget, that's hopefully inadequate.
I agree with you that it is inadequate, especially if you juxtapose it against the debt that the ministry is currently saddled with. I mean, you have running above 20 billion Ghana cedis. But what I am happy about is the assurance of the finance minister that all of these will also be audited, because it's important that we audit all these claims and satisfy ourselves that indeed these are debts that we actually owe. And I think that those assurance a couple of days ago on the floor, that will be auditing some of these roads. As a result of a basic audit, we have already come to the realization that is known in Tate. Even though monies were enjoy the full usage and utility of these roads, there's the need for you to keep an eye on the maintenance, because it is the maintenance that prolongs the integrity of these constructed roads. But if over the period the maintenance is neglected, then you have the deterioration, being fast-tracked. And that is why I am excited that the decision to uncap road fund will make about 2 billion Ghana cedis available.
But there was a reason why the previous government capped the road fund.
Well, that reason has long been, overflogged. I mean, many thought that the capping was just going to even be for a year or two. The fund enjoyed the accumulation and decided to maintain that cap. Many experts in the road sector and outside the road sector have complained about the capping. And remember, let the monies go to the respective agencies for them to use, those monies for the intended purposes. I mean, look at even the area of District Assembly Common Fund. This finance minister is not interested in controlling too much money and funds around him. He's saying about 80% of that should be sent to the district assemblies. And if we choose very, very hard-working district chief executives, and we have, support, and those district chief executives have support, good support from their assembly members, you will see how development at the local level will
comes to the road sector. We're still going to be having new roads being built, infrastructural development.
Absolutely. I mean, I was very happy when I listened to the majority leader the last time talked about the Book of Lamentations. I mean, if you read the Book of Lamentations, you appreciate Lamentations. You know, we are coming from somewhere, and we are off. So when we talk about the existing situation, it's not a lamentation. It is a highlighting of where we are coming from, really highlighting the problem. But we are ready, like His Excellency President Mahama has assured, to fix all the problems that we come across as a result of, the reckless management of the economy in the past. So be rest assured. I mean, with 2.8 billion Ghana cedis maintenance over the period, we'll see some maintenance. With about 13 billion Ghana cedis allocated to the big push, be rest assured that new roads will be started. Because if you look at our manifesto, there are many roads that are captured under the big push. And those roads will be given attention as a result of the allocation that has been made.
Thank you very much. Honorable Al-Hassan Suhaini is the Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways there. Quickly, we'll speak to Honorable Ponkuma, who is a former Minister for Information, and also, get his views on this particular budget. All right, so we're still here in Parliament. We're getting reactions from both sides of the House. The minority that scrapped the e-levy, it's scrapped the emission tax. The budget has also promised to scrap other levies, which the government believes that is having a toll on the ordinary Ghanaian. We're still here in Parliament. Let's speak to the MP for Hohoe.
Quick comments. Afenyo Markins were moving out one after the other because they have nothing to say for the first time in the history of Ghana. So I am happy, and I know the youth out there are happy. I know the women has come with a dedicated funding. Our brothers and sisters who are in school first year, their first year school fees that our manifesto states that we pay. The youth are happy, the women are happy, the men are happy because Farmer Service Center is also coming. And I know all of you are happy because while the budget was being raised from you, it's your prayers so that we'll get all this implemented. We are not thinking about where to get the money. We have raised the money internally to fund all this. Exactly. That's why every budget that is read, you as an MP, your job is to go out there. I'm going to do next week. I've already planned a program for my constituency. That's with the youth programs, youth in apprenticeship, the Okada. See, in the coming weeks, where all the youth will be gathered, we will know their area of interest. We will segment them and get them ready for the implementation of these promises today in the chamber. And we are going to see to it that they benefit immensely from this project. He has spoken about he also spoke about the roads. But he didn't specifically mention part of the budget. My constituency, Fodome to Hohoe, Sal, Danton. Get Fund for the first time will raise. That goes into Get Fund account, will stay with Get Fund. It means government will not have a hand in using the money for whatever that he wants to use. Why they will bring the act. You see, before the reading of the budget, the finance minister mentioned some acts that he will bring to Parliament for a review. That's why we are going to review that act, because our children, if you build the classroom and that student cannot go and learn, even Get Fund, they don't know anything about Get Fund. We introduced Get Fund. The time we introduced Get Fund, they demonstrated, Nanado and his people demonstrated against us. That was one time. Now are they to tell us how we should use Get Fund? No. So the act will be brought to Parliament. We will review the acts. You see, you can't give birth without knowing how you take care of the child. That's why up to date, Nanado, when they asked him of funding of free SHS, he's not able to say it. All our programs, Youth in Apprenticeship Program, Women's Development Bank, all the programs, we have a dedicated source, which we have raised internally.
All right, thank you very much. So that was the MP for Hohoe constituency in the Volta region. We're still speaking to some more officials, members of the minority who have been reacting to the budget. Let's speak to Deputy Spokesperson of the government, Shamima Muslim. She's also been responding to the 2025 budget.
There is excitement. Even you, I know, feel very hopeful about this new chapter that His Excellency is leading. Let us come together and build this Ghana. It will take you and I to build the Ghana.
So for an economy,
if you haven't been a woman menstruating and not having enough menstrual hygiene materials, you will never understand the importance age bracket and not having adequate supplies to manage her menstrual hygiene. I think their attempt to laugh at that suggestion that the ground is very disconnected to the lived reality of the people they purport to represent. So I, as a mother of 2 girls, as a sister and an auntie, and as a woman, I know that minute. Think about how to manage their menstruation when they are in their menstrual cycle. And so it's very welcome news. I am on various platforms. Everybody is celebrating the decision, and we are very happy that His Excellency has, met that particular promise to your attention or fulfilling it. It would have been suicidal. So you are here. Please report to your viewers that the money will come on stream, and that those women who are in the informal economy, whose incomes and whose capital have been eroded as a result of the mismanaged economy of the previous administration, would look, 500 is capital for a need. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You think that it's peanuts, but for some household, that is all they need to turn their lives around and ensure they can at least. Statistics before the election, Savannah region, the food basket of Ghana, had the highest food inflation. Just last week, I had a report from the Ghana Statistical Service. Upper West region, my whole region, has the highest food inflation. How do we explain that? An agrarian society, which means there's a problem. And that's why the refocus on agriculture is germane. Because if we don't ensure that agriculture actually, we will just move around circles and we'll come back here next year with no substantial, things to report upon. I am excited about this new prospect for Ghana.
The minority says that the initial allocation of 57 million Ghana cedis to the Women's Development Bank falls short of the minimum capital requirement.
This is also a government intervention. And the way that we would set it up would meet the regulations of what we perceive it and we want it to be, the structure that we want it to be. When it is time to announce it, we would announce it. I mean, for many women, but it was because of the communication of it that we called it that. But whatever the instrument and the vehicle becomes, it will be one that grants capital to women to be able to eke out a dignified livelihood for themselves and their families.
Quickly before you go, do you think that the measures outlined in terms of stabilizing the Ghana cedi in the very short term are able to do so? We are talking about the gold board, which has not been established yet. We are talking about the 24-hour economy, which is supposed to reduce food prices. All those things are futuristic. In the short term, are we able to stabilize the Ghana cedi?
I trust solely, I trust completely in the competence of the people that came up with these. I trust solely in the confidence of the finance minister and the individuals that have come out with these initiatives and programs. If we didn't believe that we could stabilize this economy, we wouldn't have offered those interventions. So let us be assured supervision that will be put in place to assure and to ensure that we do meet these obligations, because we will come back and report on them, not so. Those ideas.
Why is your government still financing teacher training allowance, nursing training allowance?
We made a promise to them, didn't we? And as you've made a promise, you must fulfill the promise. And we have fulfilled that promise. I think that is what we can say about that as of today.
Thank you very much. Shamima Muslim in Parliament. This particular budget has promised to scrap the 1.5% tax on raw gold and other initiatives that the finance minister believes are going to propel the growth of this Ghanaian economy. Quickly we'll be wrapping up, but let's speak to this MP as well to get his.
My name is Dr. Otniele Kokwenu, and I represent the good people of Ekumfi constituency in the central region.
So in Ekumfi, we'll be talking about the Ekumfi juice factory. There's 24-hour economy, initiative, the minority says the policy is not ready. I mean, the president spoke about it.
Well, I mean, if you look at President Mahama's State of the Nation address and also to today's budget, you can see the consistency with which they both spoke. Definitely in the interest of resetting this country. And like you said, in Ekunfi, you have the Ekunfi Juice Factory. It's going to help farmers, outgrower farmers, to also increase their production capacity. Now, how would the 24-hour economy help? Clearly, government has said that yes, they will be putting electricity tariffs and also injecting additional, funds into the business. So for me, even though it is not as explicit within this budget, the finance MMD is to come to Parliament to give us additional information as to how they are going to execute the contents of this budget. So I do not see why anybody will be worried at this point. And look, this budget again demonstrates of compensation. Today, districts are going to see about 80% of their monies coming to them. Today, we are talking about even free SHS, which has been a very big political issue. In times past, when people were asked how much allocation has been done in the budget, they could not say it. Today, President Mahama is telling us that he needs to reset the financial sector. Today, the bond market is going to open. Today, we are going to deal with interest rates, exchange rates, and he has demonstrated how the gold is going to target the items within the basket. Food inflation is one, transport, services. Clearly, you can see that there's a concerted effort and a plan to deal with these issues. And for me, commend Honorable Atuforsin for the great work he has done. Today, the T-bill market has enjoyed 10% across the curve, 91, 182, and then a one-year paper. That should tell you how serious it is. Today, we are enjoying goodwill from the international market. And I believe that as we make progress, when all these things come, the good people of this country are going to benefit immensely from it. And I thank President Mahama and Professor Nana Jenoproka Jiman, Her Excellency, for all the good work they are doing. And we as parliamentarians are more than willing and ready to support the agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was the Honorable Minister for the Konfi constituency in the Central Region. And this is how we wrap up our interaction. We'll continue in the studios and in the subsequent days on the floor of Parliament. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Maurice, for that interaction with some members of Parliament and stakeholders in Parliament on the 2025 budget presentation. And in the studio, we've been having some conversations about the presentation and some of the points that were raised by the Finance Minister himself, some members of Parliament who were speaking to Maurice earlier. And Mr. Dennis has been talking about the fact that, in fact, the 24-hour economy, we all know, is a good policy if it should come into fruition, would create a number of jobs. But you were raising some issues about how it may affect production at some point, because many people may not necessarily be adding more hours to their production hours, but moving production to the evenings when there are a bit of incentives for production.
Yeah, so I guess maybe broadly, the point I was making is that we've, from time immemorial, seen very beautiful policies presented in budgets, and it's always the implementation that is the issue that is fraught with either corrupt practices or inefficiency issues that, then onto the 24-hour policy. And my advice is that we have to look very closely at how we structure. And my response is, if you don't have effective system in place to monitor those that jump and benefit on this, to ensure that they are actually to absorb the increased production that is expected from that kind of incentive or the policy in general, then you may be shooting yourself in the foot, because you could be looking at entrepreneurs just looks at one, profit, and whether the market is available. Those are the two things. All the other things are nice to have, but these are the core things that they want to see. Am I going to make profits? Or am I going to arrive at the kind of price that is able to compete with what is already in the market? And is the market big enough to absorb the increased production, right? If that is not assured or that is not clear, then what incentives in this case will do will rather cause them to shift production from one, segment of the production time, where they will now move production to, the evening time, which now comes with lower cost of production because of cheaper power security and other things. But at the end, the actual will be realized. So not that incentives by themselves are not good, but if we are introducing them, we have to first ensure that these factors are, at play in terms of, the value chains and other facilitative role that government needs to play are in there to ensure that the product arrives at the market at a competitive price, and the incentives comes in and even further makes the price more competitive by lowering the cost of production. So these are some of the factors of one, let's say there not being a market for that value chain persist, then entrepreneurs may jump on it, but then the lack of market becomes an issue.
Now, there's also 100 million allocated for the payment of assembly members. That's some good news to the assembly members.
Yeah, that's very good news to the assembly members, but looking at what the budget is prioritizing, if you listen to the finance minister, the budget is prioritizing expenditure rationalization, right? Seeking to cut expenditure where paying allowances to assemblymen, but especially in terms of the timing, is it right? The first budget that is prioritizing the expenditure cuts, and now we are allocating a certain amount to pay allowances of us. What it then means is that more has to be generated elsewhere, or further cuts may have to be.
We have scrapped some taxes.
Exactly, you may have to still.
Looking forward for some taxes to be scrapped soon. So I'm told that Dr. Paul Apiakunudu has joined us back. He is on the line. Good afternoon, Doc.
Hello, good afternoon.
Doc, thanks so much for joining us. We spoke to you earlier, but that was before the budget was presented. Now it's been presented. Are you satisfied with what was contained in the budget?
Yes, I think, and because we are trying to be very disciplined in the way we spend relative to how we have spent money over the years. Doing that, we have been able to reduce expenditure from we have been disciplined, or we proposing to be disciplined in terms of fiscal management. And that is a plus, because if we are expenditures, and for the fact that for the primary balance on cash basis, we even have a surplus, that is a plus. And that means we are ready to take the bitter pill towards getting our debt levels to a more sustainable level. And then also the minister spoke about a 24-hour economic policy and the fact that they are preparing a comprehensive policy proposals which will be laid before Parliament for and wrote that out very well. That will go a long way to help reduce youth employment.
But Dr. 800 million CDs, $800 million for the Big Push program. Some have said that that's not enough.
Yeah, that is not enough, but we shouldn't forget that we are constrained by our fiscal situation. We have to commit so much to debt servicing. Government is resuming servicing of our debt, that is interest payments and capital amortization in 2025. When we engaged in the debt exchange program, we had able to spend so much. But in this year, we are resuming the servicing of our debt, and so we are constrained. So even though the government or the party during the campaign season proposed a 10 billion big push, we are constrained by our fiscal situation. So I think we can start with the 800 million. And even at that, I think if we make sure we have value for money in the way we award contracts, if we make sure that we spend the right amount on the project, I think that is a big plus, because over the years we borrow money to invest on roads, then we leave them to be destroyed within a short period of time. So for most of our roads, in 5 years' time, we see potholes, and because we don't maintain the roads, our big cars are running over the potholes and they become manholes over time. Recently, I went to my hometown, and even in my hometown, which is a countryside, I saw some road maintenance work containing our roads. I think that will help to prolong the lifespan of our roads, which reduce the commitments into the road sector. For revenues, we'll be able to allocate much more into the Big Push program.
Now, on the point about roads, the minister said that indeed we're going to conduct an audit of the areas in that sector. That must be some good news to you, considering the points you raised about the quality of roads constructed.
Yes, it is very important. The fact that we have about 67 billion these roads, even 2-3 years after their construction, they have started developing potholes because the quality of materials that were used were not standard. And so roads that also pass these roads for payment should also be held responsible after the audit, because we cannot just be throwing money. So the audit, I think, is keen, And as part of the audit, I think we should also minimize the rate at which we are reward. They do some work because we have no money to pay them. Once they raise their certificate, we are not able to pay them. And then the road gets deteriorated. Next time we have to go and borrow money to start all over again. That has been draining a lot of resources, which doesn't reflect in the quality of public services, in the quality of public infrastructure that we have. And so we should identify priority roles, priority projects that we want to work on, especially agriculture projects, especially roads that are linking agriculture producing centers to make sure that we are able to move our products, our agricultural products to marketing centers. And once we decide to grant the contract, we should make do with our commitment to pay so that the contractors can finish these roads in time to reduce the cost overruns because of delays in payments of contractors in the road sector.
Now, finally, before I let you go, we are talking about tax or cutting expenditure, but here we are adding on to that expenditure by allocating 100 million Ghana cedis.
The delivery of public expenditures, public programs. And over the years, we have neglected them because right from the presidency to ministers to CEOs of government departments and agencies, at the regional level, we have regional ministers who are being paid. District level, we have the DCs who are being paid, even land cruisers sometimes. We have assemblymen who are supposed to represent the government at the very local level, and we neglect these people. We don't pay them, right? And so how do we expect them to work, stay committed when they are not being paid? The 100 million, I think, it's not that big. If you look at how much money we spend on government officials up there, we can cut some costs and use that to be able to pay their. 100 million, I think, is not that much relative to the overall budget. It's not even up to 0.5% of the overall budget. And so I think that is a very good step that will encourage assembly members to stay true to their commitment to contribute to public policy delivery and also the delivery of projects at the local level. That is very important. And we are also making savings. The minister spoke about tax exemptions, and if we are allocating 10 million to pay assembly members, I think that is not much. And hopefully we will also be able to make safe recruitment and development.
Well, thank you so much, Doc, for your time.
Thank you.
We are grateful. That's Dr. Paul Appiah Kunedu, who is an economist, and we'll wrap up in the studio. Mr. Brown, your final words?
Yeah, I mean, I did indicate earlier that when you look at it from the context of the key policy initiatives they had promised, they were going to touch, I would say they tick the boxes. Of course, these are broad policy initiatives at best. We are also told that there is a bridge version of the budget statement, so we probably need to look at the full budget statement to see whether it provides further details. We've also heard some other concerns, put across regarding some of the policy measures that can then be critiqued, further on. We just need to take our time to analyze it properly. To touch on the various key policy measures is a good one. I am not so bothered about the allocations that have been done for the various policy measures. We've seen that variously in time past. We've also been very excited at other budgets in time past. The challenge and our challenge really sits with how we implement these policy measures. And some of them have given me a cause to be worried already. Going about shouting that we said we would do it, we have done it. You have not, outcome to it that has to be measured and evaluated at the appropriate time. So we need to commit properly to the implementation of same, ensuring that the resources allocated are properly used to achieve the intended outcome. Because there's one thing put in the budget, which is a fine number allocated to policy A, policy B, and there's another thing ensuring that that takes effect as planned and it achieves its outcome. So that's where I want us to prioritize now going forward. The allocations have been made. Are we able to make judicious use of this and the inefficiencies that results in leakages at the end of the day or at regular times? Are we able to do our monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment to ascertain and satisfy ourselves that what we intended to achieve with these policies have been achieved? That's where we are now in terms of going forward. That is what we need to prioritize.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Brown. My name is Dory Nampofo, and I've been spoke to him a few minutes ago. In the studio with me, I've had Mr. Dennis Brown, who is with Deloitte Ghana. We also spoke to Courage Boti on Zoom. He's also an economist. And Maurice Ogbete brought us some scenes, sounds, and everything, videos you needed to see from what was happening has just begun. We'll keep having more conversations on the budget presentation. We'll see you again sometime.